All right. Uh, Hi. I see that there's a bunch of people supposedly waiting in line, but it's not showing me a viewer count yet. Oh, all right. Ooh, there's already 50 people in here. Hi everyone. So first things first, as usual, a little mic check. If there's any issues with my audio, please let me know now. Um, and oh, there's a lot of comments already. Ooh, all right, this is cool. Um, yeah, please let me know if it sounds good. All right, some people already say Mick is fine, Mick is okay, sounds fine, sounds good. All right, this is great. Um, okay, welcome to the last stream of the year. I uh, I put in the last stream, I put so much hype about this stream, and it was meant to be yesterday. And then there were issues with my flights, and then other stuff and whatever, so we had to move it to today. So I'm sorry about like creating the hype for the 28th, and they happened on 29th. But I hope you can bear with me. I'm also a little bit sick, as you can maybe hear from my voice, and I'm a little bit tired. So I might not be as. I mean, I don't know. I might not be as hype as usual, but whatever. This is pretty hype, so I'm not gonna get hyped. Yeah, you know how it is. This is very exciting. It's the first time we're doing something like this. I don't remember. I don't remember doing any sort of like recap or year preview or something like that last year. Um, so yeah, this is pretty cool. So this one is going to work a little bit. Um, kind of in reverse as we usually do. So we're going to have a first part where we're going to basically look at the models that are coming out next month. Then we're going to look at the concept art for the models that are coming out in February. Then we're going to do a 2023 year in review kind of thing where we go back to like some of like the cool things that happened over this year. And then we're gonna look at 2024. I'm gonna highlight some of the big things that are happening in 24. Honestly, there was so much stuff. Like, it's crazy just how much stuff happened this year and how much stuff is coming next year. I'm sure I'm gonna miss something, and I'm gonna simplify some things and whatever. And in the interest of time, I'm also gonna try and kind of like not rush through this, but keep a good pace. And then of course at the very end, we are going to have the Q&A as usual. All right, let me just close the poll here. Okay, cool. We're gonna have the Q&A as usual, and yeah, and then that's it. Then the 2023 is over, and we can start into 2024. So all right. Yeah, let me think if there's anything else you need to know. Well, yeah, it's probably going to be longer than usual. I'm assuming. Yeah, let's just get into it. All right, so wow, there's a lot of people already online. Very cool. All right, so yeah, slide one. Let's look into it. So first off, let's look at the models that are coming out in January. So for the Vampiric Undead, we have a very ghouly release. So at the bottom center, you can see, and actually the top right as well, you can see the Ghoul Champion. So the Ghoul Champion is, well, he's the hero of the ghouls, and he's a little bit different than usual ghouls. So ghouls are kind of like smaller and more, beastly, more animalistic or whatever. Whereas the Ghoul Champion is kind of like more humanoid. So his anatomy is a bit different. He's a bit taller. His musculature is more humanoid. His face is a little bit more human. And that's kind of like how we distinguish between like a regular ghoul and like a ghoul champion. He comes in two versions, so you can have a sort of like headgear that has this hawk mask, hunting mask, whatever eye cover thing, and like a nice spiked ball in one hand, or you can have a more let's say vanilla version with like the head exposed and just a claw, um, to attack and whatever. Then you're also going to get the skeleton champion with army standard. I know, by the way, somebody pointed out that like right now some of the things that are coming out are not in the rules the way that they're currently set out to be released. So don't worry, I'm going to update the rules as the models come out to kind of like match things better. But anyway, you're going to get the army standard bearer. So the army standard bearer basically just has like a very big banner. Has a really cool sword. Has other details than the regular champion. There's a male version and a female version. And yeah, really nice big banner to represent your faction. And then also, of course, at the bottom here, you can see a bunch of like little ghouls. So this is the ghoul unit. The ghouls in OPR, in Age of Fantasy, in our universe, are sort of a hybrid. The Vampiric Undead faction has a lot of like this experimentation angle to it. And so the ghouls are a hybrid between a human and a bat. And then you get this kind of like gremlin kind of looking thing. Yeah, and I think they came out very cool. And from what I heard from the community, everybody's really loving them. So I'm very happy that people are enjoying these models. Then you're also going to get the big black VIP, work in progress shots here. But you're also going to get the ghoul horrors. The ghoul horrors are basically like the next step of like the evolution of the ghoul. So it's like a really big bad ghoul, and you're basically gonna get, you can see it here. I mean, this is not super representative, but you're basically gonna get 3 big ass ghoul horrors with different poses, different headgear, different stuff. Imagine them as like a big buff evolution of the ghoul, and you can kind of like imagine what it's gonna look like. Very cool model. Very happy with how they turned out as well. And then finally, you're also going to get a new, completely new thing for the army, which is the ghoul champion on a bat beast. So this is something that wasn't in the army before. The ghoul champion, I think, only had the bat dragon as its mount option, and we thought, hey, like we have this really cool model with the bat ghoul, bat beast. Why don't we like combine them and have a cool other mount for him that's not just a giant dragon, right? And yeah, this also comes in 2 versions. You have the version with the bear head and with the mask, so you can run as you want. And yeah, I think it's going to be very cool. A very ghouly month, as I was saying. All right, let's move on to the Dwarf Guild. So for the Dwarf Guilds, we're slowly reaching the end of the Dwarf Guilds. I think there's only 2 months left. So we're kind of like wrapping up all of the units. All right, what are you getting in January? So if you look, I suppose, the majority of this screen, you're seeing the miners. So the miners, they're not really armored. They kind of use their special abilities to like tunnel and like ambush the enemy. They're sort of like a close range, jump, come out of ambush and destroy the enemy kind of unit. They have lots of weapon options. They have picks for mining and for fighting. I think they have iron pistols. They have iron shotguns. They have fusion rifles as an option. They have some other option that I'm not thinking of right now. Whatever. They have a bunch of different weapon options, but the cool thing is that they also come with a little little turret wagon, rolling tracked thing. That basically comes in 2 configurations. It can come with like a gun, so if you want to have some additional like long range firepower, you can use that version, or it can also come with a drill, which I think does like extra melee damage. So it's like you basically pop out of the ground and then drill straight into like a tank and blow it up that way, which I thought was a cool idea. And then you actually also get a little buddy that you can see at the bottom with like a little drill. So yeah, that's the miners. Then sort of like at the bottom left and right, you can see the engineer. So the engineer is basically, let's say, like the repairman or repair woman or repair dwarf, let's say, of the dwarf guilds, and comes with this really cool mechanical backpack that has like this big, pinch arm thing. Comes with lots of weapon options as well. I think like 4 or 5 different kinds of pistols for the right hand, and then also for the left hand, you have the options for a bunch of different tools. I think it can come with like a mine, a sort of like air/gas tank, a shovel, a sort of like scanner, I think something else as well. So yeah, you can kind of like kit it out as you want. So I think a wrench, maybe, not sure. You can sort of like kit out your mechanic. Yes, your mechanic. Sure. You can kit out your mechanic however you want and do whatever combo you think is going to be cool. All right, then you're also going to get all right, you can see it here at the top. You're going to get the assault drill, and the assault drill is basically a transport evolution, kind of like of the transport APC. That's got a big ass drill in the front, and basically helps you like ambush your units, deep into the enemy deployment, or well, other parts of the battlefield as well, but deep behind enemy lines. And it comes with different options. I think it comes with like different MG options and flamer options for the sides, but overall, relatively simple vehicle. It's just put big drill on tank, have fun. That's kind of like the thing about it. And then finally, you're also going to get the Dwarf Guild's Walker. The Walker comes with lots of options. It comes with like a closed hatch at the top, or you can have it with an open hatch and a male driver and a female driver. Comes up with lots of different weapons for shooting. So I think it comes with here you can see the fusion and the machine gun. I think it also comes with some sort of plasma cannon. I think it comes with some sort of like twin iron cannon or something like that. Lots of different range options, and then also lots of different weapon options for melee. So I think it comes with like a big fist, a hammer, an axe. I think something else as well. Yeah. Anyway, comes with options for melee and comes up with options for range, and overall, just a cool dwarf walker. All right, so that's for the Dwarf Guilds in January, and I think that's the preview for January done. Yes, cool. All right, let's move on to the concept art for February. So for the Vampiric Undead, I might have already shown off some of this concept art before. Basically, we ended up having to like switch the order in which we released a couple of things, just from a production pipeline standpoint. Unfortunately, as you may have noticed, like lately we have been struggling to hit our deadlines to have the fully rendered versions of models by around the 25th, when we do the usual roadmap for the next month. We're trying to improve. We're hiring new people. We're changing things around to kind of like work faster and get stuff done earlier. But it is what it is, and sometimes we have to switch things around. So if I've already shown you some of these concepts, I do apologize. So all right, for the Vampiric Undead, the first thing you're going to get is the Corpse Master. The Corpse Master comes with this cool like staff. You kind of fully see here, but like it comes with this cool staff that has like hanging corpses and bodies and pieces and stuff like that. Comes with two different head options, male and female, of course, and essentially it's the creator of the Stitched and your big experimenter guy of the faction. Then you're also going to get the Nightbringer. So the Nightbringer is basically the evolution, let's say, of the... Well, I don't know if evolution is the right word. It's a different kind of skeleton champion, let's say. It's a Nightbringer. And he's basically like almost like your badass, like more like he's a general. If the champion is like a captain, this guy's kind of like a general. And yeah, he comes with like a badass big cape and different armor, and like you cannot fully see it here, but it comes with like a really cool halberd spear type of weapon. So another hero for your skeletons. Then you're also going to get the Lord on Steed. So you're going to get both the Lord and the Lady on Steed, which is basically so that you can join your Vampire Lords and Vampire Lady to a cavalry unit, or run it solo, I suppose. And yeah, you can see here like the vampire. So the Vampiric Undead have both skeleton horses that are ridden by skeletons, and they have like the living horses ridden by vampires and stuff like that. And they actually share beside the body being alive or dead, they actually share like different design elements in the armor. And here one of the things that you can see that's really cool is this sort of like horn that they have in the front. And actually this is a hint at some other headgear and some other stuff that is going to come later. But yeah, there's a kind of like this through line with this really cool between like different units with this really cool like horn. and armor, and yeah, I think this is going to be a very cool model. I can't wait to see the vampire lady on horseback. I think that's going to be very, very cool. Then you're also going to get the zombies. So we're calling them the stitched, but you can call them the stitched zombies or just the zombies, or as you please. So the stitched basically are, in the Vampiric Undead, the zombies are not the classic, dead people that rise out from the graves kind of situation. They are essentially just like assembled people. Zombies are basically this assembly of body parts from different, dead people and whatnot that are then animated. And so in the models, you will see like all of these lines with like stitches that kind of like connect the various body parts so that they're kind of like all like composed. And we really wanted to have a very cool silhouette for them, where it's not just a classic like undead zombie type of thing, but I want to have this sort of like dance macabre, like weird, movement type of situation for them. And so yeah, you're gonna see this in the poses. I've seen the unit already. It looks really, really cool. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a very cool unit to have on the field. And then you're also going to get the giant bats. The giant bats is basically like bat swarms on steroids. So instead of having like lots of tiny bats, you have one big bat. Size-wise, I suppose you could compare them to something like the vultures from the Mummified Undead. And they're basically, a different style of swarm unit that you can, use to pester the enemy. They look very cool, but it's big bats. And then finally, you're also going to get the corpse wagon. So for the corpse wagon, we wanted to, we wanted to try something different. We didn't want to just have the classic thing that everybody does, where it's just like, oh, like it's just a wagon filled with dead people. But instead, we wanted to reflect the lore of our own universe and how the Vampiric Undead have this like experimental side to them and whatnot. So the corpse wagon actually is a sort of surgery room that's walking, like a walking surgery station. And so you have like this very big hulking like stitched guy that's like bigger than others. It's like ogre sized kind of stitched guy that's kind of like dragging this wagon. And then you have of course you have the necromancer that's sitting there, or the corpse master that's sitting there, guiding the whole thing. And in the back, there's actually like a full on surgery happening with like a body that's being like assembled or disassembled or whatnot. And there's actually like a really cool sort of like drained like helper, with like a cool monocle thing. Whatever. You're gonna see it when it comes out. Yeah, very cool. I love the inventiveness of this thing. I have to say I really like the fact that we have somehow managed to find a way to take a faction that is so classic in fantasy and just make it our own in some ways. At some point I was really doubting that like we're gonna be able to do something cool with the faction that feels like our own. But yeah, I feel like we actually managed to do something that is truly ours. And I'm here for it. Okay, then what else are you going to get in February? So we're going to move on to Dwarf Guilds. Okay, Dwarf Guilds, I think in February is the last month of the Dwarf Guilds, and we're going to hit you up with some elite stuff. So number one, you're going to get the Guild Lord. The Guild Lord is essentially like the big bad general of the army, has like this really cool helmet, has a cool cape, has lots of different weapon options. It's I guess the dwarf champion on steroids, and it's like the ultimate leader of your army. Then you're also going to get the Iron Veterans. So the Iron Veterans, quite a big unit actually. Now I think about it, I think this is probably going to be something like 15 models for a basic infantry unit, which is a lot if you consider that a usual infantry unit is 5 models in Grimdark, and then maybe in fantasy it's more like 8 models because of like command groups. But anyway, the Iron Barons are basically just like an elite version of the Dwarf Warriors. They have these really cool tall backpacks that make them stand out on the battlefield. They come with lots of weapon options. Again, I think they come with Iron Blasters. I think they come with Iron Shotguns. They come with various special weapons, flamers, plasma guns, and all that type of stuff, and then also heavy weapons. So heavy plasma and heavy machine gun, and then also with a medic, and then also with a champion or a sergeant, and then also I think with a buddy. So you're gonna get lots of stuff with the Iron Veterans. And I actually really like that we're kind of like closing off with this really cool elite unit. Then you're also going to get the snipers. So I think this is one of the coolest units we've ever done. The snipers, I love the concept of the dwarf sniper. Somehow it feels very fitting, but also kind of feels like, I don't know, kind of wrong, because it's like snipers are meant to be kind of like small and stealthy, and dwarves are kind of like chunky. But anyway, yeah, we got the dwarf snipers. I think they come with two options, with helmets and without helmets, and they have these really cool helmets that have these sort of like lens viewfinder things in their eyes. They have like these little hoods that they can put on, and they have nice chunky sniper rifles. I think they come with 5 poses. So yeah, that's the snipers, and then finally the last thing you're going to get, and for now, I suppose, for a bit, it's going to be the last thing you get for the dwarves. It's going to be the fortress tank. So the fortress tank is, well, I guess the battle tank on steroids. So it's a big ass battle tank. I think it's tough 18 in the game, and comes with lots of different weapon options. I think it has like different things that you can mount on the hull, different things that you can mount on the turret. I think you can mount, you have multiple turret weapons. I think you can also strap additional missiles to the back of it or to the sides of it. I don't remember exactly. It's not shown here in this concept, but I'm pretty sure it's in the final model. So yeah, this is like it's a walking fortress filled with gun and just like ready to decimate the enemy. And yeah, I think that's about it. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, and of course, the legendary model for February is going to be the epic soul demon of war. So when we did the demons, we kind of came up with this concept of like the epic avatar. So the idea of basically taking a model that you have that's already like really big and cool, and giving it like a different spin with like an epic version that then becomes a legendary version. So it has like a base and like a cool pose and like unique weapon and like unique style and whatever. And we thought this was a really cool concept that we could bring back for the demons. So we are going to make epic versions of all the soul demons. So you're going to get 4 epic soul demons, of war, plague, change, and lust, of course. And yeah, here you can see like the design of the epic soul demon of war, which comes with like a really cool sort of like mouth-shaped cannon, cool sword, and this big sort of icon thing in the back. And I think that's actually a design element that's going to be across all of the epic soul demons, where they have a special type of gun, a special type of hand weapon, or maybe gauntlet or whatever, and then a sort of like big hanging icon thing in their back. And then compared to regular soul demon, which just put on a regular base, they also come with a special base because they're legendaries. So they're this guy's gonna stand on some sort of like altar with a cool pose, and it's going to be big and epic. And I'm actually really looking forward to the soul demons. I have to say, I feel that. Oh, hold on. 1 second. Jesus, I don't know what's happening here with my microphone. I hope everybody can hear me all right. All right. I have to say, I really like the soul demons that we made for the various demon factions. It's probably some of the most original content that we've made for the demons. I like how the demons turned out, and we tried to give them our own spin, but the soul demons is really like a us thing. It's not really something that there is in other games and whatnot. So I'm happy to see that we're making an additional spin on something that was already original, and keep infusing our model lines with things that are ours rather than try to just make stuff that's cool for proxies and whatnot. Okay, somebody just asked, is he being distracted by a cat? No, I'm wearing a little blanket because it's really cold here, and it just got caught in the wheels of my chair. So yeah. All right, so I've tried to speed run. It already took half an hour, but I tried to speed run through this part. Now I think it's finally time to actually take a look at 2023 in review. Okay, cool. Let me drink a sip of water. Sorry again, I'm a little ill, so I'm trying to stay alive here whilst doing the stream. All right, 2023 in review. So it's it's crazy to think how much stuff we do every year. I feel it's very easy to just get bogged down the monthly grind of new releases every month and whatnot, and kind of, at least from our side, really just put our head down in the work and forget. With the release cycle that we have, basically we work really, really hard to work on the next thing that's coming, and then the moment that it's out, we have to start focusing on what comes after that. And so we don't really have the time to, essentially do what we're going to do now, which is just look back and enjoy the spoils of our labor. And so, we forget how much stuff we make in a year. And sometimes I feel like, you get to December and without doing a recap like this, just by memory, you think OPR didn't really do anything new this year. And everything that we have now is kind of the same that we had, at the beginning of the year and whatnot. But it's not true. There's actually tons of stuff that has happened. And so let's take a look at it. So first things first, in 2023, in January, we were still doing Ratman. So I think the Ratman started in November of the year before. And yes, we basically spent the good half of about a half of maybe 4 months, whatever. We spent a good chunk of 2023 doing the Ratman. Another very cool army from OPR, very unique to us. Yes, there's other fantasy rat folk armies out there, but they're always really focusing on this sort of dirty and evil kind of aspect, or kind of take on the rats. And I really like the way that OPR did our Ratman, where they're meant to be sort of these more noble clans that have basically just been, guilds actually, that have basically just been constantly battered by combat and are slowly deteriorating. And I think I think they come out really, really cool. I'm actually very, very proud of the work that the whole team did to put the Ratman together. But okay, moving on, because we still have a lot of slides. Okay, then yes, at the beginning of 2023, we were still doing the Blessed Sisters. It really feels like forever has passed. And I forgot that the sisters were still this year. So we did the Blessed Sisters. A pretty challenging army for us because we kind of had this idea of making this army that was very Baroque. And so it was filled with all of these Baroque details and lines and engravings and special things, which really fit the style. But at the same time, that came with a lot of challenges because it's a lot of work to do all those details. And the reality is that for a lot of people, that ends up looking like a lot of detail also in the miniature, which is maybe then looks like it's hard to paint, but it's not actually hard to paint. You're not meant to paint all the ornaments different colors and waste all of your time doing this. This is all meant to be one big golden plate with just put a wash on there and get something cool out there. But it was a cool army to work on. We learned a lot of things working on Sisters and the Ratman, actually. And actually, a lot of the things that we learned and a lot of the mistakes that we made with the Blessed Sisters are things that we learned from and then used to improve our future factions. So yeah, yeah, it was a cool experience making them, and I think they came out great. All right, then what else did we do? Okay, so we actually released our new website. I had forgotten that the website came out this year. I thought we already had it forever, but no, like we actually made a completely new website. I don't even know if you guys remember the old website. It was just a very basic WordPress kind of blog that I had set up back in 2014. So it's, it was basically almost 10 years old by the time we replaced it. And yeah, so the new website came out this year. Lots of work went into this. And of course, the website is still being improved, of course. And yeah, I think the new website was really a first step into showing that OPR is becoming a more professional company, that we are, investing more of our resources into making something that, doesn't just play cool, but like looks good and has a nice design and just a more professional, high quality finished product. With the new website came a bunch of new stuff. So we did the quick start set, which are for completely free. This is a new thing for us. So, for both Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy, we released free quick start sets, which contain tons of models. They contain some terrain. They contain tokens. They contain rulers. They contain rules. They come with like a 5-chapter mini campaign, mini tutorial campaign. They come with pre-made army lists. They come with paper buildings. They come with paper minis as well. They come with paper tokens. They come with everything you really need to play. And they're completely free. And I have to say, I'm very, very proud that we're actually doing this. I don't know if there is any other company out there that does something like this. Please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But I don't know of any other company that has a full, multiple, fully free, fully 3D printable and 2D printable starter sets that give you a bunch of models and rules and all that stuff to get started with. And I think, I don't know. I think this is just really, very cool. And I'm proud of what we're doing here. I think that one of the core tenets or values or whatever goals of OPR has always been to make wargaming as accessible as possible. And I think this is a great step. I mean, the idea that you can essentially get started with wargaming for completely free, and not just using some random round tokens and whatnot, but actually like, make an army for free is kind of unheard of. And I'm very happy about this. And actually, by the way, the plan is to keep making these, so we are going to want to start rotating them. I think we're going to be rotating them every 6 months. That's the plan right now. I think the new set is coming out relatively soon, maybe in January or February, something like this. Don't quote me on this, but whatever. Soon enough, you're going to get a completely new starter set. Well, 2 completely new starter sets. Let me think. I think one is like Shackles versus War Demons, and the other one is Beastmen versus... I don't remember. Beastman versus... No, I don't remember. Anyway, you're going to get some cool new starter sets completely for free. Enjoy. What else did we do on the new website? We also started a mailing list, which we think is very important. We want to give people the ability to stay up to date with OPR content that they really love without having to just always manually check the website and the Discord and for all the news and stuff like that. So, we started our mailing list with this. We're launching the newsletter that basically helps people like keep up with OPR without having to check things all the time. And yeah, and also more free minis. So when you subscribe to the mailing list, you get 2 free minis. And I think these are also going to be rotating. So there's going to be new free minis, in 2024 and stuff like that. So very cool. And then also with the new website, we also updated how people basically access our game. So before, I think it was quite cumbersome to kind of like find the rules. It was, again, the old version was just a WordPress blog that we kind of like used as a company website. Whereas the new one, it's quite simple. Like now, it literally just says like, hey, like get the core rules here, build your army here, join the Patreon to get the minis here, and then it has like all of the resources below, so you can see like all the other cool stuff that you can get. I don't think it's ever been any easier to get OPR content than it is now. And then and then actually we also finally added a lore section on the website. So before, we've always had some sort of like a level, before less than now, but a sort of level of lore that we were exposing to people. And now it's actually already on the website, and this is just a snippet of lore, and the plan is that actually in 2024 we're going to be updating this, and there's going to be like full lore sections where you can get like tons of info on like the universes and the factions and all that stuff. So look out for more lore expansion, but we'll talk about this in the 2024 stuff. And then also, we also updated our news section. So now, if you remember back in the day, the way that it worked is we basically had like a weekly news post that I made, which was essentially just a blog post where I just put a bunch of random info. And it was quite hard to like digest and read. It just had lots of information there that maybe you didn't care about, and it was just displayed weird and didn't have enough pictures. It's too much text. And so, with the new website, we actually introduced a new version of our news section, which is much more, much easier to navigate. So you actually have each article, each thing that we talk about is in a separate article with its own pictures, with its own links. It also has a sorter system. So like every article has a sort of like tag. And if you click on that tag, you can actually see all articles in that category. So very cool. I'm actually very happy with how the news section came out. And it's cool also to see that by doing this new news section, we have internally felt more motivated to continue to release more news. If you look at January, the amount of news we released on a monthly basis in January versus in now November, December, it's completely different. Like now there's way more articles, way more video content and all that stuff. And actually we're planning to continue to up our game in our news sections and give people more info on what's coming and like other cool things that we're working on and releases and all that stuff. Basically, I guess it's like OPR as a hobby is much more than just like, hey, here is just the stuff we release. And so we want to make sure that our news section is not essentially just a catalog of releases. Well, yes, of course, we're a company and we want to make money. And, we want to keep you informed as to what comes out so you can buy it and whatnot. We think that there's so much more to OPR than just that. And so the new news section really is being used for that. And you're going to keep seeing it grow and change over time. And then I think it's the last slide here about the website. The final thing is the comics. So we now have a dedicated comic section. Before, the comics were kind of like thrown around. So we have a dedicated comic section where you can find Squip and Series Business, and you can see all the comics, read all the comics. We actually have lots of plans for comics, so we're going to keep making Series Business and Squip. Don't worry about it. Those are not going away, and we love the characters, and that's very cool. But we're also planning to do some other forms of comics, some probably like shorter format comics that maybe introduce something that's coming out, or maybe that focus on a specific thing about like the lore of a faction, or different sort of things that we can do with lore that we can then expose via comics. So keep your eyes peeled for comics news. All right, I think that's about it for the new website that we had. And then what else did we do? Oh yeah, so this year we released Army Forge Studio. Again, one of those things that like now that it's out there, it feels like it's been with us forever. But no, I'm actually pretty sure we released it early to mid year, so it's not even that old. So for those that don't know, Army Forge Studio, basically, if you're a tier 1 or tier 2 patron, you basically get access to all the tools that I personally use to make all of the armies in our games. that you can then use to make your own armies and then share them with the whole community. Automatically generate the armies, the PDFs, the Army Forge entries, and all that stuff, which is very cool. We are continuously working on this system. We're going to be adding new options. Not unfortunately. So there are some new things that are coming that are going to be available to the community, such as balance validation. So balance validation basically is, so right now, if a community member makes an army, there is no way for us to verify, or for you as a player to verify, like, is this army in any way balanced? Like, does it have any semblance of balance compared to OPR armies? And so balance validation, which we call BalVal, is basically going to be a system that allows, that basically guides creators to make armies that fit into the OPR philosophy of balance. And then in Army Forge, when you go to the community tab, you will actually be able to see a tag that says, okay, which army is following the balance guidelines and which one is not. And if you want, you can of course play with both. It doesn't really matter. But if you do care about that, if you want to try and play an army that is somewhat following, a semblance of balance as OPR defines it, then that's going to be there. There's more features that are coming that unfortunately are not going to be available to the whole community, but are going to be available to other creators. So we're going to allow basically the use of links. So there's going to be like a cool splash screen for creators. There's going to be links there. Let me see. Do I have another slide about that? No, I guess it's just a slide about the list builder. So there's going to be links there. There's going to be pictures and stuff like that. And basically just we're going to continuously improve the system to motivate creators and help creators truly to get an audience, develop their worlds through OPR as a game system. It's crazy. I was checking the stats recently. I think by now we have over 6,000 armies that have been created through Army Forge Studio, which is mind-boggling. Not all the armies are live, of course. A lot of the armies, people, they create them and then they leave them in private. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that there's 6,000 armies by now. So yeah, that's Army Forge Studio, and oh yeah, you can see here like the way that it looks right now. Well, anyway, just go to Army Forge and you can see what it looks like. Oh yeah, and one thing about this is we're also going to be separating. We're also going to create a new tab to separate partner and creator books from community books. We think that the way that it's done right now, it's kind of messy. Putting verified creators together with the community, just I don't know. It doesn't allow for a good browsing experience. It doesn't allow people that follow creators to easily find that content. And so they're going to be separated into like a different screen. That looks very, very cool. And so basically the way it's going to work is when you open Army Forge, you select the game as usual. So for example, here you would select Age of Fantasy, and then you would have like, OPR official books. Then you have another tab that would be like partners and creators, and you would have another tab that's community books. And then in the partners and creators, you will see like all the icons of all the creators. So let's say you are a supporter of Dragon Trappers Lodge, that you're looking for their army. So then you will select Dragon Trappers Lodge, and then you will be able to see only all of their armies. So it's easier for you to find that content. All right. Then what else we did? Oh, big lore update actually happened in 2023. So I don't know if people remember, but like we basically completely overhauled the lore for all of the factions throughout all of the games. So that's like 50 plus factions in both games. And then we spent a couple months just basically like releasing or highlighting the lore of each faction. So yeah, if you look at the lore that you have online now compared to where it was, in 2022, it's completely new. And yeah, that was a huge project that, again, it's one of those things that like now that it's here, we just think like, oh yeah, that's normal. The lore is here and whatever. But this was a huge project that was implemented that we're very proud of. And when we did this, we also updated the Army Forge to have like this cool section with like the army banners and the lore section, and make it easier for people to like find the lore and actually also like understand the army better. And we're going to keep improving this. So we're going to add more pictures of the army and stuff like that, so people can see like the cool models and stuff like that. And then yeah, also within here, like we made the splash screen that now allows you to basically immediately read more of the rules and see the units, and kind of, again, like it kind of helps you put the whole picture together, right? Like before you just had a PDF that had just like the units, and now it's like, oh, You see the banner of the army, you see what the army looks like, you can read its lore, you can see pictures of the army, you can see all their special rules, you can see all their units, and like you can get, by just scrolling through this page, you can get a good view of like what the whole faction is about, in terms of both lore and gameplay. And yeah. Okay, then what else did we do? Okay, then we also released 2 more armies this year with the Human Empire, for fantasy. Human Empire, very interesting army to work on. We had, we worked on one human army before with the Duchies of Vinci, but that was a long time ago, and our design philosophy was very different, and our process was very different back then and all that. But yeah, when we went into working on the Human Empire, we were actually kind of worried that we were going to just end up making a very, very, very generic human army. But we ended up, finding a good way to make it fit our lore, with the whole 5 elements things, and yeah, and how that all like spreads throughout the army, and how that changes everything and whatnot. So yeah, and this was also the first human army where you can actually see a difference in the style of the minis, because as I was saying before, when we worked on the Blessed Sisters, we loved them, but they came with a ton of problems. Like, I know that people think that they look really, really cool in renders, and if you have them printed, they're also cool, and like enjoy them, have fun. But we basically, the army took 6 months. It's funny, like now, when we see people talk about the Blessed Sisters now, all they say is that they absolutely love them, and that some people even say that they wish we still made models with those proportions. But for the entire 6 months that the army was released, every month we were getting dozens of comments about all of the various issues with the army. And so we actually went ahead and said, okay, we should listen to our audience and follow everything that makes sense that they're saying we should actually follow. And so we actually implemented those things in starting with the Empire. So the scale is slightly bigger. So the models, I think, are 2.5% bigger, which doesn't seem like much, but when you see it, it actually makes sense. The heads are a little bit bigger, so they're easier to paint. The models have less thin parts so that they're not so easy to break. Everything is designed essentially to be much better for printing, much better for painting, and then of course much better for actually playing the game. And that's the design philosophy we're going to use, going forward. And yeah, and the Human Empire is where we applied first, and I think the army came out great. And then we also worked on the Alien Hives. What do we call it? The Alien Hives rework. So the Alien Hives rework, basically, I'm gonna admit that basically what happened is, we worked on the Alien Hives, many years ago, and the faction came out pretty cool. But at the time, we didn't have necessarily the best sculpting pipeline and the best concept pipeline. And what came out was fine, but I mean, I kind of hated it. Like, basically, like, it came to the point where we were starting to do like illustrations for OPR, and every time we were gonna make an illustration for the Alien Hives, I just couldn't bear making illustrations based off those old models. I just don't think they looked up to par for what OPR wants to be. So we decided to go back and essentially like rework the faction. So that means that most units got some sort of upgrade. They either got some new weapons, or they got slightly like reworked, like sharpened details and stuff like that. And then also lots of units were actually completely changed. Most of the big monsters essentially were completely changed and re-released as new models. And I think now they look absolutely awesome. Like, I'm so proud of the Alien Hives. They really feel like an OPR only faction. And yeah, I don't know. I really love the way that they look, as this sort of like dinosaur-y, dragon-y, slightly insecty, organic Xenos vibey thing army. And yeah, I think they came out really cool, and I'm very happy with what we did here. And actually, one thing that we did here is we also introduced Buddy. So, sorry. So at the beginning of 2023, we, as I was showing before, we were working on the Ratman, and there is one thing that we learned with the Ratman that we really loved, and we have been starting to introduce to all armies, and we're going to introduce to all old armies, which is buddies, right? So the Ratman had all these cute little rat buddies that go with them, which we absolutely loved, and everybody in the community loved. And so we basically decided to add buddies to all the factions. So the Human Empire has a bunch of buddies. With the Alien Hives release, they got a bunch of buddies. So like, you have like these cool warriors with a big gun, and then like a little sort of like little buddy like crawling up on his back and stuff like that on his shoulder. And then we actually already started going back and adding buddies to old armies. So I think so far we've added buddies to the sisters, and we basically have plans and have already started working on buddy releases for, I mean, every single factions. Like, I think I don't want to overcommit to when what is released, but I'm pretty sure that we already have all of the buddies done for, in terms of like models for like the Duchess of Vinci. I think the Saurians are already done, Mummified Undead are already done, and it's just a matter of like now, re-supporting those models, re-rendering those models, and then basically like introducing those into the lineup. So yeah, if you love buddies, expect more buddies. All right. Then what else? Oh, then the cinematic bat rep actually finally came out. So this is a project that took a while to do. We started working on this actually around mid 2022. The video was filmed end of 2022, and then basically was in editing for the majority of 2023, or like mid of half of 2023, and then finally actually came out. So we had the great support of Goobertown and Mini Wargaming. And of course Cinecore Media, who filmed the whole bat rep, and they made just this amazing bat rep with these really cool cameras and this studio with all the special lights. Like it was essentially just a professional cinema crew working on a miniatures bat rep. And yeah, I think that's very cool, and I'm happy that we actually did this and that it came out. What else? Oh my god, we did so many things. What else? Third edition was released. Again, one of those things that I feel like we are now just used to it as a fact. But yes, third edition was released in September, so not even that long ago, around 3 months ago. And yeah, big overhaul to the game, changing lots of special rules, lots of weapons, changing the way that cover works, changing a bunch of things in different armies, and yeah, very cool. Changing how casting works, whatever, lots of changes. Very cool that it finally came out. We had been working on third edition for essentially like 2 years. It was V2.50 at the time, and that caused a lot of confusion back then because we had both PDFs available that were not V2.50, and then we had Army Forge, which had V2.50, and then people were very confused about what is V2.50 versus V2.5, and it was a mess. But we got out of there, released third edition, new cover art for all the games, new rules, new changes, and yeah, I think it came out really, really well. And we're now well into the first quarter of third edition. I think overall, after the initial, there was an initial moment of, kind of like getting adapted to it. But I see now that the community is very happy with the rules, and me too. I'm also very happy with how they're coming out. And there's going to be more updates soon, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm happy about third edition. Then we also, we went to Spiel. So we went to our very first convention this year. Well, we actually went to 2 conventions, but the first was TMX. Damn, I should have put a slide about that. Well, we went to TMX, but it was a very small event, but very cool, hosted by Uncle Adam. But it was a very small event, like 100 people there. But still very cool. But then we went to Spiel Essen, where we had like a big booth, and Spiel Essen has like, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of visitors, maybe like 150,000 visitors, something like that. I'm not sure, but basically it has tons of people going there. And it was very cool to actually have OPR represented there with a booth, giving demo games, giving out minis, explaining what we do. And here you can see a picture of the booth completely packed. You cannot even see the tables anymore. Like, it was, man, it was very, very cool. I went into it with the fear of like, oh my God, like we're doing all of this work and this investment into making this booth, and then it's just going to be empty. But instead it was packed. Like 90% of the time it was completely packed with people coming and going, always playing demos and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it was very cool. And you can actually expect us to start going to conventions more frequently. We are hoping to do at least. I'll talk about it more a bit later, maybe, but like we're hoping to do at least 2 conventions a year. Right now, we're kind of trying to understand what our cornerstone conventions should be. So right now, our plan is to attend Adepticon next year, but just as from a business side. So we're not going to have a stand. But we're going to go and attend Adepticon and take a look at it and see if it's like, do we feel that it's worth, getting a booth there for the year after. We're also going to have a booth at UKGE, so UK Games Expo. We actually have a booth there. We actually have a road named after us inside the convention. So yeah, you can expect us at UKGE. We are still eyeing Spiel Essen. I'm not sure if we're going to be at Spiel again. But maybe, we're collaborating a lot with Titan Forge nowadays, and they have a big booth. And last time they gave us a little chunk of their booth, and maybe with some of the projects that I'm going to talk about later, we're actually going to have like a cool, shared booth kind of situation again. Cool to see OPR actually go to conventions. Again, it's one of those little steps that makes me feel like all of this is so much more legit. Like most of the time I'm just a guy in my bedroom, working on rules, and working on this company. But when you're there at a convention and you see people actually play the game and have fun and learn about it and immediately get it, it's a different story. All right, what else happened in 2023? Oh yeah, so also in 2023, I don't know. Okay, it's showing me a little loading symbol. Okay, no, it seems to be working now. Another thing that we did in 2023 is we also started adding different prizes for our painting contest, something that we didn't have before. So now you get some special digital minis when you win the painting contest. And actually, you can get them at different places as well. So like we were giving out some event minis at the convention, and you could also get them as part of the writing jam. And we're going to keep looking at ways to have these cool minis that we can just basically give out for a limited time for like 6 months or so. They're basically the only way you can get them is like at specific events or by winning certain competitions and whatnot. And then eventually they're released to the public and everybody can buy them and have them. But, having that nice little like 6 months exclusivity as a bonus, I think is very cool. And then we also actually started working with Chronicle Games, who now provide paint brushes for our painting contest. And actually, we are looking into partnering up with more people to keep providing you with other special rewards for things like painting contests, for campaigns, for whatever we can do. And I think again, it's one of those things that I feel helps make the whole thing more legit. It's a cool collaboration. And at the end of the day, look, I don't know how much sense this makes business-wise, but like for me, you guys come first. For me, it's just like, how can we do something cool for our audience? And that's basically what we're looking to do. So, getting you, cool paint brushes for a painting contest is a cool thing we can do for you. So if we can keep, coming up with partnerships that allow us to get you cool stuff, then we're going to do that. All right, what else we got for 2023? Oh, then of course we started releasing Dwarf Guilds. Again, very cool, like to see, if man, I don't know. I really love the way that OPR has progressed, and I feel like with the Dwarf Guilds, it's one further step in the evolution of OPR after the Empire. So like we learned so many things when working on the Sisters, and then we applied it to the Empire, and then we learned so many things on working on the Empire, and then we applied those to the dwarf guilds, and also of course the vampiric undead. And it's very cool to see it all come together. So yeah, the army is nice. It's dwarfy. It's chunky. It's easy to paint. It's nice to print. It actually just I have some models that right here. Like it just feels really nice in your hand when you have these dwarf models. They just feel right. Like I have to say that's the thing that I like about the direction that our models are taking. It's just they feel right in my hand. They have that slight chunkiness that I expect from miniatures. That stability, those proportions that just feel really, really cool when you have the mini. And yeah, the dwarf guilds are absolutely awesome. They also come with buddies, the whole 9 yards. Is that how you say it? Anyway, so yeah, it was very cool to work on the dwarf guilds, and also it's very cool to work on dwarves again. Like we had released a beginning of a fantasy dwarf armies. 2020, I think it was in early 2020, and then eventually that army was removed, and so it's very cool that we have now come back and actually done dwarves. And actually I think in the future you can expect us to work more, or at least for some period to work more on some of those cornerstone factions. Like I love everything we've done with OPR so far, but I think that for many people we are both the Age of Fantasy and Grimdark Future are missing some of those basic factions that you would expect from these games, like your basic humans, your basic elves, your basic dwarves, your basic orcs, your basic Battle Brothers style army and stuff like that. And I think we're gonna have to, or we're gonna want to start focusing on those for a bit, because it's just, well, first of all, it's just very cool to make dwarves and stuff like that and elves, but also I think it's just because people want that. And again, are we just making minis? Sorry, my nose is absolutely itchy. My god, my mustache is really long. I need to cut it, and it's also itching my nose. Sorry. We as cool as it is for us to just make armies that we think are fun and that we enjoy, and we're gonna keep doing that as well, of course. We also think it's important to provide you guys with what you want, right? And so yeah, let's make a dwarf army. Let's make an elf army. Let's make an orcs army and all that stuff. And let's get those things out there, because anyway, they're going to be cool for us as well, right? So if it's cool for us and if it's cool for you, yeah, we're both winning, right? Then what else we have? We worked on the Vampiric Undead. So we just started them, of course, in November? No. In October? Dude, time flies. No, in November. Anyway, we started the Vampiric Undead in November, and again, culmination of many lessons learned. I think it's very cool to see everything really come together. So it's an army that we started off from completely original OPR concepts. We took ideas from our lore and from our concept designers, and we put it all together to create something that feels classic but also unique to us. We have worked with new proportions to make models that are nice to print, paint, and play. And just, yeah, we've added buddies, of course. And yeah, we're just doing really cool stuff with them. I'm really, really happy with how they came out. And honestly, like, I know that there's still like 4 months or 5 months of Vampire still to go. But yeah, I'm already sad to have to see them go. I don't know. I just really enjoy them. I guess maybe I just love the little back buddies and stuff. And I really love an army that has different anatomies for everything. So like if you look at an army like the Dwarf Guilds, everything you have is basically dwarves in different types of armor, and then tanks of different kinds and bikes, I suppose. But like most of it, it's just like you're taking the dwarf, you're putting different armor and weapons, you're doing some cool poses, and that's it, right? Whereas with an army like the Vampiric Undead, like you're doing so many cool different things. You're working on vampires, and you're working on bats, and you're working on the drained, and you're working on skeletons, and you're working on dragons, and you're working on skeleton horses, and you're working on normal horses, and you're working with wagons and chariots, and every unit, ghouls, right? And every new unit is a different thing, and it comes with its challenges. Of course, it's more work It's much more work than doing an army where everything is based off the same anatomy, and there's a lot more back and forth and a lot more like design decisions that happen throughout the process. And sometimes you're working on something, then you have to take a step back. Like it's a challenge, but I think it's absolutely worth it. And yeah, oh my god, there's more stuff. And then yes, this year we also updated, this was like last month essentially, we updated our only games prices. So unlike many other companies that keep raising their prices, we actually decided to lower our prices and lower our price significantly. So like I think most models are now 30 to 50% cheaper than they were before. We essentially decided to, the truth is we essentially decided to take a cut in our profits to make wargaming more accessible to you. So we want to make sure that it's as easy as possible for people to get into war games. And whilst yes, we are a company and we're trying to make money and blah blah blah, all that stuff, we think it's more important that more people can access wargaming and our content and our worlds and play our games than to make a couple bucks more. From sales. And then we also in combination with this goal, we also released we released these new army starter sets. So we said, okay, how can we basically looked at all of like the purchasing behavior of people, and we kind of realized like there was one of the big problems people are having with accessing OPR content when they go on only games is that like only games is filled with like tons of like units and heroes and vehicles and all that stuff. But it's very hard if you're just starting out to know like, well, where to start. And so the armor starter sets are perfect for that. So like for $100, you basically get a ton of minis. You get here, all of these are 34 minis. Some of them are more 35, 36. Some of them I think have even 39 minis or 40 minis. And we basically looked at like, how can we get you as many minis as possible for a reasonable price that works for us and works for you. And it's a cool starting point. And actually, it's very cool. Like we see a lot of people are getting the starter sets. And what we're also seeing is that, people get the starter set. And so they have this good baseline. And then they go look at the army. And then they pick up like, oh, I have all of these things. But let me also get this other hero and maybe this other unit and maybe this cannon or whatever. And so they kind of like, the starter set helps you build your core, and then you kind of like go and add things to it. Something we've also noticed is that people are essentially using they're essentially using the starter sets to kind of like do their own like 2-player starter sets. So like somebody will get we see a lot of people do something like getting the Human Empire and the Ratman, for example, together and just getting those 2 sets, which unless we're misreading what people are doing, like we're basically interpreting that people are saying, hey, like I'm gonna get 2 armies so that I can actually start playing. And so we're actually looking into making like 2-player starter sets where maybe for $100 or maybe a little bit more, maybe $150, you can get 2 starter armies to get you playing and get you going. And yeah, cool stuff. And okay, for as great as it is that we have become so big in the 3D printing space, we do acknowledge that 3D printing is still a niche within a niche, and that most people don't have a 3D printer and won't get a 3D printer, and that's completely fine. And our goal for the future is to help people without printers to access our content. And so right now going through only games is a great move. And then, we're looking into other ways to get people physical miniatures. But yeah, we want to keep supporting people without printers. And we think that in the future, that will be a big part of what we do, right? Like making sure that, both digital and physical can be accessed and accessible for people so that they can, get playing. Okay, I think, oh my God, is this it? Oh no, totally forgot. So in December, we actually released Grimdark Future Warfleet. So this is something we've been working on for a long time. So probably a year and a half. Essentially, we took the old FTL rules and reworked them a bit and completely chucked all the generic, whatever space fleet armies that they had before, and now introduced 17. Yes, we tripled essentially the amount of armies that are in the game. Introduced 17 new armies based off Grimdark Future factions. So, you have your Battle Brothers, your Alien Hives, your HDF, your High Elf fleets, and all that stuff. And they're all in the game. We got some really cool new cover art for it, and then we also introduced an Army Forge integration for it, and it's very cool. The game just came out, and we're already seeing like a ton of people printing ships, posting bat reps, talking about it. It's very cool to see how like this new release has reinvigorated the whole thing. For now, we still don't have new 3D printable fleets for it, but we will talk about some more of that later. We also currently don't have an Army Forge Studio version of it, so basically you cannot create your own fleets. The reason being is that essentially right now, Warfleets does not have a point calculator. So if you don't know how our other games work, is all of our games essentially use a sort of core point calculation engine that assigns a value to everything in the game. Quality, defense, weapons, special rules, ranges. The whole thing. And basically, when you create a unit, it just spits out a point value, and that's how we make sure that the whole game is balanced. And actually, right now, or until now, I suppose, Warfleets was not designed with that in mind. Warfleets was designed. Yes, there is a very, very, very rough outline of how much things should cost. Essentially, one upgrade one upgrade basically costs 20 points, and then all the numbers are then tweaked based off of that. So like a ship that maybe has 2 upgrades but has a special rule, instead of costing 40 points ends up costing 50 points. But all of that was essentially done through play testing and by eye. And whilst that's very cool, it basically makes it impossible to put out an Army Forge Studio / point calculator for it, because there is no point calculation. So we can't give people the tools. I don't think it's fair for anyone that we give people the tools to build a fleet that then has no costs, or that just has this very, very wrong cost of just like, one upgrade costs 20 points. So anyway, the point is we are going to be working at some point in 2024. Our plan is to work on the back end of FTL more, and essentially introduce a point calculator to it. So a full roster of like, what is worth what, and so on and so forth. And then based off of all of that, essentially allow people to build their own fleets. Probably when we do this, there will be some changes to how fleets are costed. So maybe like, I don't know. So right now, for instance, you pay, let's say, 40 points for a light ship, and then you can just take 2 upgrades, and the upgrades have no cost. Well, maybe in the future it'll be something like, buying the light ship costs, I don't know, 20 points, and then you can buy different upgrades, and each upgrade has different costs. Like some might cost 10, some might cost 15, some might cost 20, something like that. And then basically you assemble your ship, and they become more expensive, and kind of like the other games, right? Like you buy the base unit and you do upgrades, and that's how you get its total cost. All right, I think that's it with Warfleets, and yeah, okay, all right, cool. We're getting to the end of these slides. So yeah, 2023, tons of stuff happened. There was way more that happened than I've covered here. I haven't talked at all about like the writing gems that we've been doing, or all of the community surveys, all of the special like sponsored videos. We've been collaborating, of course, as always, with Paintman Germany and with Hans Wargaming, and you can see lots of new video content from them. There's tons of other things that happened with the games, with balance changes, with lore updates, lots of stuff. But anyway, 2023 was a very cool year for OPR. I feel like It's very different how you guys experience the company versus how we experience the company, because what you really get to experience is the final product, whereas what we experience is like the day-to-day grind of running a company. And so it's cool to see how we have grown over the last year, like internally. And we're basically setting everything up so that we can start doing, more content, more varied content, more interesting content, collaborations, partnerships, going to events, and all that stuff. So we basically spent like the majority of last year or of this year, besides doing everything that we do, also working internally on the company. So like we changed our company structure. We changed how teams are organized. We changed how our tools work. We changed different tools that we use, and we're constantly working on improving the company internally so that we can give you something cool at the end of the day. I think it's very easy for people to forget that at the end of the day, OPR is a tiny, tiny company. I think we are on a good day 30 to 40 people, and that might seem like a lot, but it really isn't, because you just everybody's kind of like working freelance, and um you just need lots of different people to work on this stuff, and we release a ton of stuff. And so when we look at the amount of content that we do and that we release, and the stuff we're able to do with our small team, and I don't want to compare us too much to like big companies, but there are big companies out there with 1,500 employees that do less than we do. So yeah, I think it's actually quite impressive what we've been able to create and what we've been able to do. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this whole thing develops. All right, I think that's about it for the 2023 review. I hope you enjoyed it. This was interesting. Today I was putting together the slides for this, and it was kind of cool to like re-see and re-remember and revisit a lot of things that happened that I kind of like had completely forgotten about. But yeah, anyway, very cool. Let me just take another sip of water. Okay, so all right, let's take a look at 2024 finally. So first, a little introduction about 2024 and some of the terminology I'm going to use. And this is something that I think is going to be very important to understand for how we do things in the future. So, okay, the basic premise is this. The way that our current business model works is basically we have a Patreon that goes out for $10 a month, and we release a ton of content. We release 2 times, 3 times, in some cases 5 times as much content as other creators for just $10 a month, which is great, which we love, and we're going to keep doing, and there is nothing changing there. Actually, we're probably going to be adding a couple of things to the thing, but whatever, you're going to find out. But something that we realize is like we cannot keep adding content to the Patreon without essentially raising the price at some point. It just becomes not fair to us, and actually it also becomes kind of like a hindrance to you guys, because if we are focusing everything on the Patreon and you're just getting a ton of stuff that maybe you're not even that interested in, and then you just end up with bigger piles of shame that don't really matter, it kind of like the focus of things kind of changes. Like there was a point where we were releasing 3 armies per month. We did this for about 6 months, and it was an absolute nightmare, not just for us internally, but also like for the communication with people and so on and so forth. So anyway, we're going to be doing more content, right? So the way that we're going to do is we're going to make more content, and a lot of the content, or most of this new content, is going to be released outside of the Patreon. Now, there are 3 ways that we can and or will be releasing content, and I want to explain them now so that we kind of like have a good idea of how things work. So first up, we have soft launches. So essentially, a soft launch is how we have been releasing everything so far. A soft launch is just a new army comes out, and it comes out. Like a new month comes and the army is out, and it's just on the Patreon. or it's, maybe we talk about it on the website a little bit, but it's just, the regular way that we release things, as always. So one day there is new stuff, right? That's a soft launch. Then we have another thing which is called a product launch. So a product launch for us is basically a situation where we launch something new, where we're going to have a short, limited moment where we do a big focus on that thing, and provide it at a great price to kind of like boost its launch. So this is mostly going to be done through things like frontiers. So imagine we are going to be doing a new release for a narrative campaign, and we'll talk about it, in a minute. Then that would be something like a product launch. What does it mean? So imagine that the campaign comes with a couple of armies. Then, for the 2 weeks or whatever of when it's first released, there's going to be a frontiers where you can go and you can basically buy all of that content at like a reduced price. And it essentially just allows us to do like a nice marketing push with a focus on the thing that we're releasing, providing it at a great price for a short amount of time, to kind of like, boost it and get people like really paying attention to it. That's a product launch. And then finally, we have crowdfunding campaigns. Now, crowdfunding campaigns compared to a product launch are, let's say, like the real deal. So a crowdfunding campaign would be something that has like a big marketing push behind it. It probably has a marketing lead time to it. It has, stretch goals. It has, unlocks. It has tiers. It's a full-on crowdfunding campaign. This is the type of thing that we might do via something like Kickstarter, or maybe like GameFound actually might be better for us. And essentially, it's a crowdfunding campaign. So the plan is that, yes, we're going to keep doing tons of soft launches throughout the year, as always. So, new armies, new content, whatever that's just released out there, and that's cool. Then a lot of the time, we are going to be also doing product launches. So, hey, this new thing is released for these 2 weeks. Go get it at an amazing price for this limited amount of time. And then finally, every now and then, we're also going to do crowdfunding campaigns where it's like, okay, we have this one cool new big thing that we're doing, and we want to make like a big deal out of it. And so it's going to be a crowdfunding campaign with, all the marketing behind it and the stretch goals and, all that stuff. All right. I hope that is clear enough. I don't know how much this really matters, but just so you know, when I say soft launch, or I say product launch, or I say crowdfunding, this is what I'm referring to. And I think it's very important that people understand the difference, because it's like, I think especially at the beginning, people might get a little bit confused when we do our frontiers. That's a product launch, and maybe they're like, oh, why are there stretch goals and stuff like that? And we want people to understand what the difference is. Oh, also something I forgot, that is the big difference between a product launch and a crowdfunding campaign. So a product launch done via something like a Frontiers also is basically instant access to the content, right? So it's this campaign came out, and this campaign comes out, and there's all this new content, and you buy it and you get it right immediately. It's not a crowdfunding campaign where you pledge to it, and then you have to wait until the end of the campaign, and then there is a period until the stuff is actually delivered. If it's a full-on digital campaign, it probably would be released pretty soon after campaign is over. But maybe if it's a physical campaign, because yes, we would love to do physical campaigns, it might take a while before it comes out. It's a regular crowdfunding. But yes, those are two big differences. So product launch, you buy it and you get it. Crowdfunding campaign, you pledge, and then you get it when it's ready. All right. Now that I've explained this, let's go into it. So, all right. So one thing we have a full roadmap for 2024. So we know what we're going to be releasing in January, February, March, April, May, and so on and so forth. I very much debated if I should actually provide that full month by month schedule. But honestly, with the fact that, delays happen and, these type of things, I don't want to put that out there yet. So I'm going to give you a rough idea of when these things are coming out. But, anyway, this is all planned for 24. But so that you have an idea of what's coming out in 2024, and then, whatever. So big thing for 2024 is basically there's two generally big things that are happening. Number one, it's the year of the lore, truly. So in 2024, we want to finally release a ton of the lore. We want to start releasing new short stories, new campaigns, new lore books, faction books, all that stuff. We want to basically focus on lore because we know people love our games. We know there's a lot of people that have seen the army interest and stuff like, and are very interested in what more there is to these worlds. And now we actually want to give it to them. So that's one of the big things that's happening in 2024. And the second big thing is we essentially, within the company, we essentially spent the last 2 years starting a ton of projects that kind of have all been running in parallel, but none of them were ready for release yet. And so the big thing for us in 2024 is also to take all of this content that has been worked on for the last 2 years and finally actually push it out there for people to have access. So, all right, the first thing that you're going to get is short stories. So every month on Patreon, we are going to be releasing a sci-fi and a fantasy short story every month. And on Patreon, you're also going to get a mission with each short story. Then when the month is over and after, I don't know, a couple of months, whatever, that short story without the mission is going to be released for free on our website. So basically, the idea is to give people that are not patrons access to the lore as well, but give patrons a boon or a boost or a special thing by giving them the mission. And actually, this is going to slowly, in some ways, replace the way we currently release missions, because the way we currently release missions on Patreon is just, hey, here's 4 missions, and that's it. They don't really have a big context. They have a name and they have like a 3-line lore snippet, but they don't really have a context. So now, by actually combining them, you're going to get a cool short story and a mission at the end of the short story. So there is a context for what you're doing, and truly in a big way, what we're doing in 2024 is exactly this, right? Providing a context for the games you play, so that it's not just a generic experience, like, oh yeah, here's just 2 generic fantasy armies clashing. But no, you actually get into the lore, you get into understanding how things work, and then you fight the battle. The idea, of course, is that then at some point, I don't know, after a year or 2 years, I'm not sure, we're going to take all of the short stories and we're going to put them together in a nice little bundle and then release those as like a paid bundle where you can get all of the short stories with all of the missions outside of Patreon, so people can actually, people that were not on the Patreon or missed on those missions or don't want to be on Patreon or whatever, they can also get access to those missions tied to the short stories. And yeah, I think that's going to be very cool. So short stories, yes. I am actually very, very excited about this because it means that every single month you are getting 2 short stories. So every single month we are going to keep pushing the lore. Every month there's going to be something new to talk about, some new characters, some new interesting snippets about the world, some new things that people didn't know about before. You're going to get to understand the world better, the characters, the factions, the languages, all that stuff is going to slowly start really flashing out the world. And it's coming out every single month. Yes, so that's the short stories. One thing actually, okay, I can talk about this at the end. Okay, so that's the short stories. Then we are also going to be doing narrative campaigns. So as most of you probably know already, in February, we're going to be releasing Secrets of Texile. And Secrets of Texile is our first new narrative campaign now for Age of Fantasy. And it's a first product launch. So essentially, you're going to have a Frontiers where I think it's for 2 weeks, you basically have access to Secrets of Texile, which is a narrative campaign, which if you've never played an OPR narrative campaign, basically it contains a story and missions that go with it. So it's usually 5 chapters, and it's like an action movie. Like you're reading the story, then you play a mission, then you read more story, then you play a mission, then you read more story, you play a mission, and it's really designed in such a way that like you could play each chapter is 2 missions, so you could play like 1 chapter in like a session, right? So like you can sit together with a buddy and you can read the lore, you can play the first mission, you can read how the lore continues, and you can play the second mission, read the end of the section. It's like, nice, we finished this chapter, and then I don't know if it's 5 chapters, if you do this once a week, in a month you can finish the campaign at a nice, relaxed pace. So the narrative campaigns come with the book, right? The actual story, but they also come with heroes. So each narrative campaign is going to come with 4 heroes. That's our plan for now. Of course, it could be that in the future, maybe there's some campaigns that come with 5 heroes. Maybe there's a campaign that comes with 3 heroes. I'm not sure. Right now, the plan is that it comes with 4 heroes, 2 heroes for each of the factions that comes with it. And essentially, this is then sold as a little bundle. So if you already have all of the armies, or the armies that are featured in the campaign, in this case for Secrets of Texile, it's going to be Saurians versus Duchies of Vinci. If you already have the armies, the only thing you get is the little bundle where you get the book, you get the 4 heroes, and it's there for you. It's done. You can play that, you can enjoy it, and you don't have to worry about having to buy minis that you already have, for whatever. Again, so that's, yes. So if you already have everything, don't worry. You're going to get, you're going to be able to get just the mission with the new heroes. Then we're going to additionally have tiers for people basically that kind of like want to dip their toes into, in this case, Age of Fantasy. So you can get the campaign with the 4 heroes, and you can get 2 small starter armies, one for Duchies of Vinci, one for Saurians. And if you get this nice little bundle, you have everything you need to start playing the game. And then there's also going to be like a big bundle where it's like, hey, like, do you want the missions and the heroes and the entirety of the other faction, of the 2 factions? Then here it is. You can also get like the big bundle where it's like, okay, get all of the Saurians, all the Duchies of Vinci, and the campaign, and the 4 heroes, and you can get like the whole experience in one. There's also more things that we're doing. We're collaborating with some other creators. I think we already announced that we're collaborating with Tooth and Coats and some others, whatever. But yes, so that's a narrative campaign. I am very excited about narrative campaigns because, of course, I mean, for us the plan is, and you'll be able to spot it. For us, the plan is that this narrative campaign is starting off a bigger saga within the Age of Fantasy, within the world of Age of Fantasy, and then we're also going to be working on a Grimdark Future saga, let's say, whatever, campaigns for Grimdark Future as well, that then can be interconnected, and you can have recurring characters and all this stuff, and all the cool things that you expect. Like we know that there are people that are thirsty for lore, and one of the things that everybody asks for is that we also introduce heroes. And here's something that's very, very important for you to understand. So OPR continues to strive and will continue to strive to be a fully miniatures agnostic game. So people that want to play it without our lore, without our stuff, don't have to. They don't have to worry about it. And actually, we're thinking of introducing new systems to further generify the games. Whatever, I can maybe talk about that later. But basically, so the heroes will be available in Army Forge, but they will be optional. So you will have to actively like go there and tick like, hey, I want to have narrative heroes in my army list, and only if you do that, do they pop up on the Army Forge, and you can build an army including these heroes. And if you don't want to play with these heroes, you don't have to. There's nothing forcing you. And of course, also the heroes are always following the same point calculation method as everything else. So they're just as balanced as everything else. Where we have no intention of making overpowered heroes so that whatever, they're cooler than everything else. And that's kind of like the idea. And yeah, so there is going to be a narrative campaign in February, like I already said. And we're working on at least one more narrative campaign for Grimdark Future in 2024. We hope that this works. We hope that people like it and that people buy it and that people enjoy it. If it works, you can expect us to keep doing this. Like, I would love to release 2, maybe even 4 narrative campaigns every year to give you guys more lore, bigger stories, heroes, and characters that you can fall in love with, and all that stuff. So yeah, narrative campaigns, very cool stuff. All right, cool. So after narrative campaigns, we are also going to be releasing world books. So all right, world books are All right, world books are basically man, there's been a big evolution to this stuff. So the world books are basically a lore books that are an intro to the worlds. I feel like I'm really complicating something that's simple. Whatever. Do you want to find out about the Grimdark Future World? Then get the Grimdark Future World book. That's what we're doing. We're going to be releasing world books that talk about Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy in 2024. Right now, the plan is to release the Grimdark Future World book in early 2024. We're hoping, again, I don't want to really give dates. We're hoping early 2024, and then somewhere around mid 2024 to release the Age of Fantasy World book. Now, these books have heavily evolved since we originally concepted them. So I think when we first came up with the idea, it was meant to be like a 25, 30 page booklet or something like that. And then slowly over time it grew. It was 35 pages, and it was 40. Then it became 50. And I think by now it's like an actual chunky book with like 65 plus pages. The original intention at the time was that, since it was meant to be this really tiny little booklet, it was meant to go out for free. But now that it's become so big, and we had to invest so much money into and time and effort and everything, not just money, into making all of the lore and all the writing and all the art. There's tons of art in these books. Our plan is essentially to release the beginning of the book that gives you all of the info that you need to like understand the core of the worlds for free. And then if you want all of the rest, then you can buy the book. Something that we're also exploring here is the possibility of providing them physically. So there is, as many of you might already know, there is a big hesitation within OPR of releasing physical books, especially books that contain rules, because we are a digital first game. We have living rule books, so they change very frequently, and we don't like the idea of giving you a physical rule book that then in 3 months is outdated, and then you have to go buy a new one, or then maybe we feel like compelled to have to like do erratas and FAQs, and there's just an absolute mess. But a world book contains no rules, so we could totally provide this as a physical book. And honestly, given the amount of like cool art that there is in there, it's actually just a really cool art book that you can like flick through. So yes, we might very well release these as a physical product, maybe in print on demand or something like that. So yeah, that's something that we're planning on doing. Yeah, this will be, by the way, this will be a soft launch. So these are just going to be released, and you're going to get them. And there's no special like campaign frontiers or something for these. Like, it's just nice, cool content that we want to put in your hands. Yeah, we've been working on these for a long time, and yeah, we can't wait to finally see them being released. All right, so that's the world books. But beside the world books, we're also going to be working on faction books. So our plan right now is to release at least 2 faction books in 2024. Again, we might be very ambitious here. So if we look at our full roadmap for 2024, we are releasing something new every single month, pretty much. I think 10 or 11 out of 12 months, we're releasing something new. So we're being very ambitious. But yes, so the idea is to release a faction book, I think for a fantasy faction book in early to mid 2024, and then a grimdark faction book in late to end of 2024. And the faction books essentially are like a world book, but for the factions. So they give you all of the history of the faction. They talk about the faction's culture. They talk about their language. They talk about their religion. They talk about how their armies are structured. They show you different color schemes for different armies. They talk about each individual unit and tell you like what each unit is about. And again, these are probably going to be quite chunky, so you can expect them to be like 65 plus pages. And these are also going to be available as a we're hoping that they're also going to be available as a print on demand. And again, these are going to be launched as a product launch. So that means that you're going to be able to like go on frontiers or something like that. And like, let's imagine that. And by the way, this is in no way have we still decided exactly which factions are going to get the thing. But let's assume the Duchies of Vinci got a faction book. Then what you could expect is that when the faction book comes out, there is a frontiers where you can buy all of the minis for the Duchies of Vinci with the army book, and we think that's a very cool that's a very cool way to like essentially bundle things together. It's like, hey, here's the book, here's the army, you have everything you need to like really fall in love with it. And the faction books again have no rules. So our rules, as always, are digital. Our rules are fully free. There is no we have no intention to start doing codex style releases with codex creep and all of that terrible stuff that we all hate, I assume. And so yes, you can expect us to make cool books with cool art and cool lore without rules that you can enjoy. And yeah, this is also very exciting. And so yeah, 2 books in the year. Again, we're hoping that maybe one day we can ramp this up and we could do 4 books in a year. So if you take into account that our games collectively have around 50 armies in them, if we released 4 a year, that would still take us like 10 years to get to all the armies. So yeah, it's a lot of work ahead of us, and we would like to do that as well. All right, so that's the faction books. That's another thing that's coming in 2024. And then the mission packs, of course. So now so far we have been releasing missions on Patreon every month, and then every, I think, 18 months we basically do a bundle and release them as a mission pack. And whilst the mission packs are cool, again, they're kind of like, they're lacking in lore. They don't really have a context. They're just kind of there. And yes, people buy them and people like them. They're actually one of our most successful products. And they're very cool and they're fun. But we think that there is something lacking. So what we're going to be working on in 2024 and going forward is essentially so what we're going to do for now is going to take the current mission packs that we have, and we're essentially going to fluff them up. So we're going to take the mission pack. We are going to create a setting for that mission pack, and then we're going to refluff all the missions to fit that setting. So imagine, like, I don't know, there's a Grimdark Future book, a Grimdark Future mission pack about, I don't know, the battle for Robot Land 2. Who cares, right? The battle for something, right? I don't know, battle for Eden Prime. I don't know, whatever. And then that book is gonna basically have like a bunch of lore. It's gonna tell you about like the setting and the conflict and who was involved in there and like what did it happen and all of the stuff that to like really give you like the context for this. And then that way you can actually take the missions and run a campaign in that setting and have like a full-on narrative experience going through all you can also just play the missions one by one as you please, do whatever you want. But I think the really cool thing is that then you have like a full narrative campaign, a full narrative that then you can use to run essentially a progressive campaign throughout all the missions and the conflict and whatnot. And another thing, so like I said before, one of the things that people ask a lot about with the narrative and the lore and stuff like that is to have more heroes. So our plan here is to introduce 4 heroes for this specific setting. So I don't know if there's this mission pack about the battle for Eden Prime, and maybe in this battle we had, I don't know, dwarf guilds and alien hives and robot legions and eternal dynasty. Then we're going to talk about 4 different sub factions that fought in here and 1 hero from each faction, and then we're going to actually release the model. So this is also going to be a product launch. So the idea is you get the mission packs, you get the 4 heroes, and it's a cool little bundle. If you already have the armies, don't worry about it. And then if you want, you can get the bundle with starter armies for the 4 armies or the full 4 armies, and essentially play out the whole conflict and really run with it and have fun with mission packs. So the plan is to hopefully release 2 mission packs in 2024. So right now, I think the plan is that in mid 2024, there's going to be a Grimdark one, and I think towards the end of 2024, there's going to be a fantasy one. I think that's the plan. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, so that's coming. And with this, our plans change, right? So we are going to be, instead of you getting random missions from mission packs on Patreon, you're going to be getting the short stories with the missions. And then mission packs will be this additional product that you can buy outside of the Patreon. That comes with a couple of new heroes, and that comes with, you know, the campaign, whatnot. Sorry, I'm really ill. I can feel my mind wander a little bit. By the way, I think I saw in the chat somebody was kind of like asking about price point for these things. As always with OPR, you can expect everything to be quite cheap. Like I would expect like booklets to be, you know, just the books probably to be around, I don't know, $10, you know, $5 to $10, depending on the book and depending on the size and whatnot. And then the heroes, you know, usually we sell a hero for $5 a pop. So, you know, the pack of 4 heroes probably would be something like the pack of 4 heroes, which would usually be $20, plus the campaign, which let's say would be $10, so that's $30, and then we would slap a nice discount on it, and maybe you can buy it for, I don't know, $25, you know, or $24. I don't know. We usually do like a 20% discount on these type of things, so you can buy them like that in the store, and then probably when they're released as part of the product launch, they would be even cheaper. So I don't know the exact numbers. Don't stress me too much about it, but you know, who knows? Maybe you can buy the bundle of just the mission with the heroes for $10 for those 2 weeks, and then afterwards you can get it for whatever it is, $25 later. And then, you know, the versions that come with the army bundles would also be pretty cheap. So I would assume that maybe the ones with the starter bundles would be, I don't know, 2 starter armies plus the mission pack would be $50, maybe $60, something like that. And you get a ton of models, of course. And then the big bundles would, of course, be much more expensive because you get everything. But, you know, you can expect for the product launches to always come with like a really fat discount. So, yeah, it's gonna be accessible as always. We would rather get content in your hands than inflate the price just to make a couple more bucks. I don't think the difference for us matters that much if we make, you know, $3, $5 more for a product than if we can get it, you know, cheaper. Anyway, so 2 mission packs. So okay, so if we take a look at everything that I just spoke about, so short stories every month, narrative campaigns with heroes, world books that talk about the whole worlds, faction books that talk about a specific faction that then comes bundled with the faction, and then mission packs that come with like a bunch of missions and a couple of heroes as well, to kind of get you going. Ideally, what we want to do is focus. Of course, we want to focus on armies and factions that have OPR minis for them. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for us to do like a mission pack featuring 4 armies that we don't have minis for, especially because like, what are we going to do? Heroes that we don't really have a design for, and then maybe it later gets changed. And so you can expect them to be for those armies. And the idea is that within pretty soon, by the end of 2024 and then 2025, there's going to be like nice selection of heroes scattered throughout all the factions, which of course, as always, are completely optional. You do not have to play with the narrative heroes. You do not have to use OPR lore and care about OPR lore if you don't. All right. I think that's about it for these things. Let's keep going. What else we got? Oh, yes. So Age of Fantasy Quest and D&D content. So we are currently planning to finally actually release Age of Fantasy Quest. So the big hurdle that we're having right now with Age of Fantasy Quest, and this is something that we had talked about previously, is that it's tough to work on a game without app support. Like, essentially, we have 50 armies in the games, and when we're developing the game, we want to make sure that we can leverage the tools that we have to essentially generate content as easy as possible. Generate maybe sounds wrong. So, okay, the way that, for instance, Skirmish works is we make an army for, let's say, Grimdark Future, and then it gets automatically converted to Firefight. So I don't have to go in and manually remake 50 armies to have a Skirmish variant. And so with a game like Age of Fantasy Quest, it's the same thing. We want to have an automated system where it's like, okay, we already know all of the rules for the Ratman, so let's have a system that allows us to convert those rules into the Age of Fantasy Quest version. And actually, right now, that's the big hurdle that we're having at Age of Fantasy Quest. But the plan that we have is to actually work that out and have the app support that we need to launch the game, hopefully around mid 2024. And the idea is that the game is then going to be launched with essentially like an adventure book. So ideally, we would like to pair this with a army release. So let's imagine that like now we're going to be releasing the Vampiric Undead for 6 months. So what we would love to do is we would love to do like a nice big adventure or a nice big campaign that is over, let's say six chapters, and then each month with the Vampiric Undead you get one chapter of the campaign that then you can play overall throughout the thing, and then each chapter features some of the minis that are part of the release, and then like you basically build up your nice little thing. And then we also want to release additional like adventurers and heroes that you can use for Age of Fantasy Quest. So that's Age of Fantasy Quest, and that's what we've been planning to do. Now, something that a lot of people have contacted us about, something that a lot of people have asked us about is like, hey, when is OPR going to do an RPG? When are you doing an RPG? When is an RPG coming? Blah, 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 blah. Which makes sense. And the reality is making an RPG is a lot of work. And making yet another RPG entering a market that's completely saturated with 1,000 other RPGs out there, when we are like, I'm the one that makes all of the games, and I'm not really an RPG player, and I don't think it makes sense for us to currently pour a ton of work into making an RPG that then possibly 50 people are going to play, right? When actually we did a poll recently where we actually asked the community, like, how many people actually play D&D and how many people actually care about D&D content for OPR. And I was shocked. I thought it would be a small number. I thought maybe 10%, 15% of our audience would be like that. So it turns out that around 60% of our audience plays D&D, and around 50% of our audience, so not just that audience, 50% of our audience overall would love to have D&D content. So what we're going to attempt is we're going to try a first soft approach at doing this. So we don't want to go crazy. We want to manage things. So the first thing that we're basically thinking of doing two things. One thing is we want to basically release stat blocks for existing armies. So, if you are playing D&D and you're saying, hey, I really love the OPR Duchies of Vinci, I would like to have stat lines for all of the OPR Duchies of Vinci line so that then I can use them in my D&D sessions. Then we're going to provide that certain nice book, just contains all of the rules for all of the minis. Go ahead, have fun, put them in your campaign. But another thing we're planning to do is basically take these Age of Fantasy Quest campaigns and make them in such a way that they're modular, where you can play them with Age of Fantasy Quest, enjoy them as an Age of Fantasy Quest campaign, which is, it's a skirmish war game and all that stuff. Blah, blah. But you can when you get that, you also can get a D&D version of it. So it's the same campaign, but it's adapted to be played as an RPG. And we think this is a nice way to essentially like do something that we want. Do something that we want to do anyway with Age of Fantasy Quest, and actually give people the option to use it for D&D. And we hope that this is going to basically open us up to a new audience, and we're going to hopefully also like satisfy all of our existing audience that likes to play RPGs and that wants to play D&D content from OPR. And let's do this experiment. Let's run it for 6 months. See how it works. We're gonna start with Age of Fantasy Quest and do it for fantasy. But if it works, if people love it, if it's successful, we can start doing it for Grimdark Future as well. And let's see where it goes. I myself am not a big RPG player. I've actually played very, very few RPG sessions. But yeah, I don't know. Let's do this experiment. It's something I think that's worth trying, and we're going to see. If it doesn't work, hey, we'll just remove it, and it doesn't matter. Now, I'm trying not to look too much at the comments because I have so much going on, but I'm going to address this. I know that there are some people that don't like D&D, that don't want to play D&D, and so on and so forth. The reality is that, if we are going to adapt our game to work with an RPG, we are going to do it for the biggest and most reach, the one RPG that has the most reach, right? Like, yes, I understand that people like other RPGs as well, but just understand it from our perspective. Like, from a business perspective, it's just, where are we going to put our resources? We're going to put them into something that's going to reach the largest audience possible. And then after that, who knows? Maybe we will do a version of these quests for Pathfinder. Maybe we'll make them for God, I'm really not good with RPGs. Worlds of Darkness or whatever it's called. I don't know. I don't want to promise anything. This is a big test that we're doing. We're going to see how it works out. And if it works out, you can expect more content. If it doesn't work out, it's just going to be removed one day, and that's it. And maybe then one day we will make, a proprietary OPR RPG with our own rules and our stuff and blah blah blah. But yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So that's Quest. What else we got? My God, there's so much stuff. Oh yes, 10mm games. So small scale games. All right. So this is something we've been talking about for years. So this is a project we've been working on for 2 years. Again, it's the type of project that really had like a big scope creep. So originally we were working on just a couple of units for 2 armies, and then it slowly expanded. First we were only doing fantasy, I think. Then we started doing Grimdark as well. Then we thought, okay, let's do, maybe instead of 2 tiny armies, let's do slightly bigger armies. And then at some point it devolved into like, okay, if we want to properly launch a small scale game, we need to provide at least 2 full small scale armies for each game. For a Grimdark Future, 10mm game, or small scale game, and for an Age of Fantasy small scale game. So that's what we're currently working on. We're currently working on Alien Hives versus Robot Legions, and we're working on Saurians versus Mummified Undead. That's what it is. So, right, the plan is that somewhere in mid 2024, we're going to start with the Grimdark Future Commander, which is the small scale version of Grimdark Future, and then somewhere towards the end of 2024, we're going to release the fantasy version of it. I think that's about it. Probably like a 3-4 month distance between them. We are currently pretty far into the process of making all these armies. So for some of you that have been with us before about this, okay, there's 2 things I need to talk about. I need to talk about the games, and I need to talk about the minis. So very quickly about the games. So the games right now, we had released a very early prototype on Discord that you can still find there if you're in the patrons only section. And it works. But again, just like with Age of Fantasy Quest, we are currently looking into essentially a Commandify option. So a way to have armies automatically translated into being small scale armies. If we can get that to work, and honestly, it's looking a little complex, so we might have to end up making most armies from scratch, which sucks, but it is what it is, I suppose. If it works out, yes, we will basically be able to go into playtesting a bunch soon, and we are going to have we're going to basically be able to release these games. And the idea here is to release the games as probably either a product launch or a crowdfunding campaign, I'm not sure, where we're going to release Grimdark Future Commander, and with Commander, you're going to get the models. Now, one thing that's important is we had already spoken about this thing that we wanted to make sure that our small scale models come in 3 scales. We were originally going to release them in 6mm, 10mm, and 15mm, and we were honestly going kind of crazy because we were supposed to release them on all 3 scales, with bases, without bases, with ranks, lots of different things. And then we are kind of like, as we are looking at these 4 armies really blow up in scale, we are actually looking to essentially simplify this and reduce it. So number 1, I'm sorry, y'all, but we are going to be removing 6mm. We are not going to be releasing 6mm versions of the models. Now, don't worry, we are going to release fully supported ranked versions of the 10mm models. And if you want, just go ahead and scale them down by 40% and print them in 6mm. But we just cannot guarantee that they're going to print well, that they're going to look amazing. Like, it's just 6mm is kind of a crazy scale for us and for what we're trying to do. And we Sorry. Yeah, just 6 mil is kind of crazy. That's the reality of 6 mil. And so yes, for 6 mil, it's not going to happen. At least not for now. If we do see that there is a huge demand for 6 mil, then we're going to do 6 mil as well. But for now, our main focus is on 10 mil. So we're going to provide supported ranks of 10 mil models, and then we're also going to provide 15 mil versions of the models, but there we're only going to provide the supported individual models. So basically the idea is when you buy these models, you're going to get the versions, the 10 mil versions that you can use for the small scale games or for the big scale games with the small scale conversion. And then you're going to get the 15 mil models of the 15 mil version of the models, which you can use to play essentially like a scaled down version of the big games. You can also totally use them to play the small scale games. So just to be clear, the small scale games do not define a specific scale, truly, as none of our games do. They do suggest overall sizes for the rectangular bases that they're on, just the stands. I think that's what we call them. So yeah, you could totally take the 10 mil stands that are fully supported, scale them up by 50%, print them as 15 millimeter stands, and then play Commander and Generals, that's the fantasy version, in 15 mil, or you can play 10 mil, or you can use the 50 mils to play the regular games. Whatever. You're going to get lots of options anyway. It's going to be very, very, very cool. Something that's important here is that it's, I know that for some people they're like, oh, but like you're making 10 mil models, like why don't I just take my models and just print them at 35% scale or whatever, 33% of the scale. The reality is that the models are not designed for that, right? So what happens is you can totally do it, and we have seen people do it, but the problem is that the models, even though we try to make nicely printable chunky models for 32 mil, when you scale them down to 15 mil or even 10 mil or even 6 mil, everything becomes so small and thin that it's essentially just unprintable. And I mean, it's very hard to print, and it breaks, and it's hard to paint and whatnot. And so, yes, so we're focusing on 10 mil and 50 mil with the models adapted for that scale. And you can kind of see here, like the models are much chunkier. The details are much bigger and simplified. There is no real texture work. The weapons are really big and chunky and stuff, and all of that. And and honestly, like with these small scale models, they're actually really easy to paint because you can essentially just base coat them and base coat them, give them a wash, and then add a couple of highlights, and you can get like a really cool gigantic army. So yeah, that's the 10 mil stuff. Jesus, we still have like 5 slides left. What is going on? All right, what else do we have? Okay, so Warfleet ships. So we are looking at releasing ships for Warfleets. This is it's a bit of a big mess or whatever, but currently the plan is to try and get Warfleet ships towards the end of 2024. Unfortunately, with our current release schedule and everything, I don't think we're gonna be able to release them any sooner than that. And I'm also not 100% sure how we're going to release them. I'm not sure right now if we are going to be able to put them on Patreon, or if we're maybe going to release like 2 fleets at the beginning and release them as a sort of like product launch, as a sort of starter set, or if they're just going to be soft launches. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to be released, but they're going to be released. And actually, one thing that we're thinking about is Warfleets might be the perfect type of game to actually do like a physical starter box for people to actually get, that's even available in like a game store. We're not sure. It's still very much in the plans, but yes, we're going to be working on ships for Warfleets, and you can expect more news later in 2024. Right now, the plan is to have them by the end of the year, but that's more to come. Okay, what else we got? All right, okay, this is cool. So Worlds Beyond. So as I talked about before, we are partnering up with more people. We are starting to collaborate with more creators to provide more cool things. And 2024 is going to be a real big one because we are collaborating with Titanforge and with Archvillain Games in this new project that we're calling Worlds Beyond. So Worlds Beyond essentially is a collaboration between the three of us to basically provide awesome armies for OPR games so that we can keep expanding essentially cross playability between factions and games and companies and so on and so forth. So our first step is that we are doing a Worlds Beyond digital campaign in I think it's in April. You can actually go right now on Frontiers and already sign up for it to get more info. The plan essentially is to release. So everything is still kind of in the works, of course, but the plan is to have two starter bundles. Essentially, there's going to be a sci-fi and a fantasy starter, and those bundles are going to have 3 armies, one from each creator, and on top of the 3 armies, the full 3 armies at a great price. You're also going to get a new special epic legendary mini. So you're going to get 3 massive minis plus 3 armies. You can get it for fantasy, you can get it for sci-fi, or you can get both, of course. And then as as add-ons, you can then get full individual armies from all 3 of us. So from Titanforge, from Archvillain, and from OPR. And you can get the full armies. And yes, and so you can get all these armies, and then all of these armies are, of course, going to then be available on Armyforge. So that means you can expect all of these Titanforge armies, all these Archvillain armies to have full rules for OPR, for Grimdark Future, for Firefight, for Fantasy, for Skirmish, for Regiments, all of them available for you to play. We think this is a great opportunity. I'm very excited about it. We are together. We are the 3 essentially like biggest creators when it comes to these type of things, and partnering up to do this big project, I think, is going to really help, get the whole wargaming community together. And it is, it's my dream to one day essentially, be able to like run a tournament where, you have Titanforge armies fighting Archvillain armies, fighting OPR armies, fighting other armies as well. And it's just, maybe even just, Titanforge versus Archvillain armies fighting together, and OPR is not even involved. They're using Grimdark Future, but OPR is not even in there. And I think that's a future I want to live in. I think that's very, very cool. And I hope that this also then encourages other people to join the OPR partnership programs and the compatibility programs, and to start making more armies, and essentially help us create a game system, a unified game system that everybody can use to play together. Yes, it's cool. Go to your game store, play your specific game, whatnot, but go ahead and have a system that you can mix things with, right? So if one day you're going to have, a 3-way match where you have a Titanforge army fighting a War Machine army, fighting an Archvillain army, fighting a Warhammer army, and then they're all together, I think that's a fucking cool future that I want to live in. And so the Worlds Beyond digital campaign is the first step. We're also looking into doing a Worlds Beyond physical campaign, probably towards the end of 2024, where we are essentially going to be providing full physical armies, full physical factions for the games. The focus on the digital version, on the digital campaign, is a big Grimdark Future and stuff armies, whereas for the physical version, I think we're going to focus more on the skirmish games so that we can provide a nice start into the things for physical. And then, of course, people can go into our individual physical stores and expand and play the full games and stuff like that. And this is very, very cool. I'm really excited to see where it goes. Go to Frontiers, sign up, and show us support. Show these creators the support that we can bring them. I think that's, if you want to help us out, that's what you can do. Like, if you love OPR, if you like Titanforge and Archvillain, or maybe you don't know about them, or maybe you love them already, if you've been curious about them, if you want more creators to partner up with us, if you want to see wargaming expand into a new bright future, then this is the way. So show your support. and show them that this is a project that's worth it, and that that they're doing the right move to partner up with OPR. Okay, and what else? Are we not at the end? Oh, okay. This is very cool. So, in collaboration, talking about partnerships and stuff like that. So, we are actually going to be partnering up with Titanforge to do some factions for Bloodfields. So, if you don't know, Titanforge has a skirmish. I'm gonna say like a relatively it's an easy to learn competitive skirmish game, let's say. So it's like imagine something like War Machine, but like made easy. Not easy, but like easy to learn and then to get into, and then have a more competitive game. So something a bit more competitive, more complex than what you have with OPR. Then you can go to play Bloodfields, and we're partnering up with them to bring a couple of our OPR factions to Bloodfields. And actually, like last week or 2 weeks ago, I actually went to Poland. I went to Titanforge's office and I met up with them. And I saw how they make minis. They have an in-house manufacturing facility. It's very cool. I saw how they develop Bloodfields. We actually played Bloodfields. We created the actual armies, actual OPR armies for Bloodfields, and played some test games. And it was very, very cool. And the idea is that mid 2024 they are going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign for Bloodfields, and this is going to be an all physical campaign. And included in that campaign as add-ons, we are going to have OPR factions. We are going to be providing. Okay, don't quote me on this, but I think we're going to be providing 3 factions. 2 of them are going to be standard factions, as and love them, and one of them is going to be a kind of new faction. So basically, we are going to be providing a couple, like it's a small war band of Saurians that has been specifically developed for this Bloodfields campaign. The models are still based off the existing Saurian line. So basically, if you go and get Bloodfields, the physical Bloodfield set, and you get the physical OPR Bloodfield Saurian army or whatnot, you can actually take those models and then go and play OPR with them, or keep playing Bloodfields with them. And yes, that's how it goes. That's how the models are being released. It's going to be very cool. And I'm excited about it. I played Bloodfields the first time. I played it at Spiel Essen when we visited there, and we were with Titanforge. And I played it again now I actually played online at some point on Tabletop Sim, and then I played again now, and it's very cool to play a different game with OPR models, especially playing a game that both has kind of like the same philosophy of like easy to get into and simplicity, and you use these cards that really help like make it easy to get into, but that is a much more competitively oriented game that works different than OPR games, and that felt really, really refreshing. Cool. Okay, and then what else do we got? We have one last slide. Oh, okay, cool. All right, and then let's talk about. My God, we are more than 2 hours into this, so this took a while. All right, so this has been the overall preview for 2024, but there is much, much more to come. So we are going to be doing a big overhaul of the website, providing additional lore sections. We are going to be able to provide. So we're going to basically expand the website to have like a lore hub for each setting, so like a Grimdark Teacher lore hub, and then from there you can then access the lore of each individual faction. And the idea is to essentially provide an expanded, like if in Army Forge you have a short snippet of the faction, on the website you're going to have an expanded view of the faction. So like if you want to, I don't know if people realize that, but like there is the OPR worlds are actually enormous. There is so much work that has gone into them. They're really huge, but we just haven't been really exposing them. And so the website is going to have a lot of content. So if you want to really go down the rabbit hole of lore, you can do so on our website. So that's happening. There's an overhaul of the website coming. We are going to also keep overhauling. Yes. Army Forge, so you can expect new features, you can expect a new look, Speaking of new look, we're actually working on updating our logos. So we're going to be updating the logos for Age of Fantasy and Grimdark Future. We're actually going to be updating the design, the overall graphic design of our books, both exterior and interior. So you can expect a design overhaul of the graphics. You can expect new games like we spoke about, quarterly updates, right? I've talked about this before. So every quarter we're going to be updating the game. So in January, actually, there's going to be the first quarterly update, and then the next one in April, and then the next one in July, and then October. So every 3 months the games are going to get updated again. You can expect so many things. So new models for all the quest stuff as well. So heroes and stuff like that. We are also going to be updating old faction with some new things. So as we already revealed in January, for instance, we're updating the Beastmen. So with the Beastmen, we are going to get some new weapon options for the heroes. There's actually one new model with the army standard bearer. We're going to be updating a bunch of other factions with small tweaks. So like new weapon options for heroes or units. Individual new models here and there, like army standard bearers and stuff like that. Buddies, of course, for old factions. Oh god, I feel like there is still so much more that I'm blanking out on. Yeah, we're working on new news article style. We are hoping maybe. I don't want to jump the gun, but we're hoping maybe at some point to actually work on like a little novella, so like a first actual book for OPR to kind of see if people are interested in that in the book market. Book, whatever. If people are interested in books from OPR, we are going to multiple conventions. We are. I know there is more. I know there is so much more, but I am blanking out. So yeah, you can expect a lot. You can expect a lot from OPR. Like I said at the beginning of the 2024 preview, the way that things are currently planned, there's essentially one new thing every single month. At least one new product every single month, be it the starting of the release of a short story, be it a faction book, be it a campaign, be it a mission pack, be it a world book, be it a new game like the 10mm games, be it whatever Worlds Beyond projects and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think we're being very ambitious. But I feel like if we don't make big plans, we are not going to see big results. And we hope this can all help. Like, if all of these plans work and the game can keep growing, and we can keep making more money, then it means we can also start hiring more people, and then we can hopefully start doing more things, right? So, for instance, right now, like I said, there is a limit to how many things we can keep releasing on Patreon. So, for instance, something that I would love to do is have the resources and the manpower to start building additional armies that are then released outside of Patreon, right? So if we're releasing on average like 4 or 5 armies a year on Patreon, what if we could then also release like a 6th or a 7th army even outside of Patreon that you can then buy? I think that might be actually especially beneficial for those armies that are not like huge or super popular. So like, I don't know, something like the Elven Jesters might be more suitable as a outside of Patreon release than an inside Patreon release, or maybe armies that have like a very complex structure, like maybe the goblins. So like the goblins, they come with like the wolf clan, the spider clan, and the bat clan, and then there's also the trolls that are part of the army. And so it's an army that I think if we were to release it at a steady pace, it might take like a full year to release, because it's just so big. It might take like a full year to release on Patreon. So rather than bore people with 12 months of goblins, why not release that outside of the Patreon and all that stuff. And yeah, so lots of stuff coming. Like I said, I am sure I know that there is a ton more stuff that I'm blanking out on. But yeah, all right. So we are now at the end, coming towards the end of the stream. So let me shift to How do I usually do this? Okay, I usually do it like this. Let me shift to this view. All right, so before the stream, as always, I had created a little poll thing where people can go and ask questions. So I'm going to take a look at that and answer the questions from there. And then after that, I'm going to come back here. So I'm going to be looking at different screens, so I'm not going to see the chat. And after that, I'm going to come back here and answer, a couple of more questions from the chat. And then we can finally wrap this up because we're already 2 hours and 20 minutes into this. And, these things usually try to last like an hour and a half. So we're going to be 1 hour or more over time. All right. So let me take a look at these questions. I actually did not look at them before. Usually I try to filter them before, but I'll kind of go, here. All right. Okay, cool. First question. Would there be any plans for a single month release of Elven Jesters? Like I said, something like Elven Jester is probably something that we might release outside of Patreon as its own thing. And that way, well, you can get it in one go. So it's a 1 month release. I think the Elven Jesters are still big enough that if they were released on Patreon, they would take at least 2 months to release. Maybe even 3. I'm not exactly sure exactly everything they have. But yeah, it's something that we would love to do outside of the Patreon. As always, other armies have priorities. They are a very, very small army with fewer players. So, we're going to focus on the bigger armies first and then slowly go into the smaller armies. Is there still a point calculator on Patreon? Yeah, yes, it's Army Forge Studio. Is there a point calculator for their future war fleets? Not yet. All right. For war fleets, will legendary fleets return at some point in the future? No, there are no plans for legendary fleets to come back. For those that don't know, legendary fleets were basically like a fleet-wide bonus and malice that you could add to your fleet, but they were very swingy and kind of weird. And really, they were just made in such a way. They were just made so that we could kind of stretch those 6 factions into feeling like more factions. But no, now that we have 17 factions, I don't expect us to bring back legendary fleets. With the announcement that OPR will be collaborating with Archvillain and Titanforge, do you know if they will start making stats? Yes, they're making stats for all of the armies that are released as part of the campaign. And if everything works out well, they're probably going to start releasing stats for other past armies and anything new that they release. That's the plan, at least. Blah, 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 blah. It seems like high elf fleets kind of look like Blessed Sisters with lots of cloth and triangle tabards. Are you making sure each faction will get its own distinct look? Yes, the high elf fleets will look very different than the Blessed Sisters, and when you have them on the table, you will definitely not confuse them. Unlike Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy, Warfleets offers unique systems, heroes, titles, and weapons with the supplemental rules. Any plans on offering Forge support for these official but monetized options? Not currently. This is actually something that we had talked about a while ago. The idea of like bringing the content from the advanced rulebooks into Army Forge in some ways, and maybe at some point even having all army books, all rule books directly in Army Forge. It might be something that happens at some point in the future, but no plans yet. Congratulations on your stuff. How do you guys plan to handle all the new workflow? Is OPR growing? Yes. So over the last 6 months, I'm gonna say, the company has grown. Most importantly, the company has grown in terms of like management. So as you may or may not know, for the past essentially 10 years, I have been completely running this company by myself, which means that I was the team lead for every single team. I was doing everything. I was leading the concept team, the sculpting team, the writing team, the illustration team, the marketing. I was doing everything. And of course, that's a huge bottleneck for the company. And so what we've been working on basically is expanding like our management team to allow us to do more stuff and then keep growing our teams to handle all the new work. It would be nice to meet more members of the OPR team, like artists, sculptors, writers, etc. Do you plan meet the team kind of news? Maybe we are planning to expand the website to add like a team page where we kind of have like credits for the whole team. So that's somewhere where you can find out more about the team. It would be cool to maybe eventually have some team members on the stream and stuff like that. The reality is that most people are shy and they not. I'm very energetic and I have no problem being on a live stream and stuff like that. But not everybody's like me, and so I understand. If we can find someone from the team that is happy to do it, I would be very happy to do it. And I actually have some people in mind that I think would be very, very cool to have on here to discuss, how things work. Would you give us an update on the terrain and basing bits? Oh yeah, I totally forgot. With all the things that are coming out in 2024. Oh yeah, by the way, one thing I didn't mention in all the 2024 roadmap is, of course, we're going to keep releasing new armies. So I think we're going to be releasing at least 4 new armies throughout 2024. And possibly start some of new armies that then will be finished in 2025. And also, yes, we're doing new terrain. And the original terrain was meant to be released in December, but now it's been delayed, and we're going to start releasing it in January. So far, everything is going well, so we should be able to start releasing in January and keep releasing every month. But if there's any issues, we will let you know. As the creative OPR, did you ever think that your one page of rules could ever reach the highs that it has? Absolutely not. Like, I when I first wrote that little one-page document, I thought, I didn't really think anything of it. It was a thing that I put online and whatever. If you had told me 10 years ago when I started this that it would reach what it has reached today, I would never have believed you. Like, there was no chance in hell that this was going to work. Yet somehow it did. So that's very cool. When was the first time you realized how popular OPR was to the community? In a small way, I realized it probably, I don't know, it was so gradual, it was hard to tell. I think I maybe really realized it once we... I think the Discord really helped, because the Discord allowed everyone to kind of be in the same place and to talk, quickly and on a daily basis and whatnot, and share pictures and share army lists and all that stuff. And that's kind of, I think, where I kind of realized, like, okay, this is a thing. This is getting big. And then when people started making videos on YouTube about it, that was another big step. And now I'm seeing a big shift, which is even cooler, and it's making me realize how big it is like, not only are making people videos playing OPR online on YouTube, whatever, they're making them showing OPR minis. They're actually using OPR minis, and they're actually talking about OPR lore, and they're actually talking about OPR tactics. Like, before, it really was in many ways just like, hey, here is just this game that I'm using to kind of like to proxy my stuff, and that's it. And now it's like it's its own thing. Like, people have started out wargaming with OPR, and OPR is their only game, and it's their main game. And it's actually evolving. I think we have around like 12,000 Patreon subscribers. It is insane to think that every single month there are 12,000 people that are paying for our products, and there's even more outside of that, and there's way more that are playing the game. Like, you could fill, I don't even know what size a stadium is, but you could fill a stadium with the amount of players that there are. There are literally tens of thousands of players of OPR, and that is mind-boggling to me. Like, I cannot imagine that that's real. It's very strange. It's very strange, especially because I'm just a guy in my bedroom. As far as I know, I'm just a guy in my bedroom. So yeah, anyway, very cool. All right. Okay, somebody asked a couple of archers shooting on cavalry that has just charged them and bounced back by 1 inch. Okay, so cavalry charges archers, they bounce back 1 inch, and then archers shoot at them. This guy's saying this seems odd. Do you see a solution that would not add many layers of complexity? No, we don't think that it's a problem. This is just how OPR is built. If archers are surviving a cavalry charge, that is great for them, and they should totally get to shoot back. I can't imagine that many archers have survived and that it really matters, but this is just how OPR is built. Sorry. What are the current top 3 priorities of OPR as a company? Internally or externally, I suppose. That's kind of like what I'm wondering now. I think our top priorities are getting the lore out there. So really establishing OPR as its own thing, where people get it, that it's its own world and universe and whatnot. Getting into physical, so getting the games and models out to people that do not have 3D printers. I say those 2 are definitely really, really big priorities. And our third priority, I don't know. I don't really think in these terms of like, I never really liked the thing of like, give me your top 5 or your top 3 or give me your number 1 thing. Like, I don't really work that way. So I would say our top priorities are definitely like getting the lore out there and moving into the physical space. That's a big thing for us. Hybrid units pay for both weapons and usually only use one. Do you think that they are overcosted? I don't know. Hybrid units are complicated. I feel like hybrid units are the type of thing that either, I don't know. I feel like they're kind of swingy. Like sometimes you have a hybrid unit that just ends up getting to use both its shooting and melee in a game, and that turns out great. Sometimes it doesn't get to do. It only gets to do one. That's not as great. Sometimes it doesn't get to do either, and then of course that sucks. So I don't know. Are they overcosted? Maybe a little bit. This is a big thing that we've been talking about with the community for literally 5 to 10 years. Like the problem, the quote unquote problem with hybrid units. We have looked at many different ways of solving it, and from what we see, essentially, unless we essentially completely restructure how units are made and how they work, there is no simple solution for this problem. And I don't think it is a big enough problem to warrant us, at least currently, to completely restructure how we do things. Other than toughness to damage ratio, is there anything else being added to the automatic balance validation for Army Forge, such as abilities that can't be used together? No, so I think it's the toughness to damage ratio. That's the number 1 thing. Then it's the amount of units that can break the validation within a unit. Then it's the combinations of different things. So like you cannot create a unit of 15 tough 3 models that will, for instance, not count as balance valid. I'm trying to think about what else. I think those are the basics. So really, Balval is just trying to say like, hey, don't make a unit that can wreck everything in one go. Basically, okay, Balval is basically trying to limit how much damage output a unit can have per activation relative to its toughness and its point value, right? So what we are really trying to avoid is, somebody making, a single infantry guy that then carries fucking 100 huge cannons, and so it's in a single activation you could wipe out the other side of the table, right? That's kind of like what we're trying to avoid. And also what we're trying to avoid is essentially creators abusing our system to essentially do a sort of like codex creep situation for their armies, where like every new army they release is better than the last, and we kind of want to keep that in check. So yeah, so far the biggest indicator for us of balance has been the toughness to damage ratio, but I do wonder if over time we're going to start introducing other limitations, like, hey, you cannot have both, I don't know, rending and poison on the same weapon. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I don't know, something like that. And the final question: is there ever going to be a split patron tiers for fantasy and sci-fi? There are no plans for that. No, there are no plans for that. We are going to keep doing it as we do. We like our current business model. Yeah, nice. All right, that was all the questions from here. So now let me go and switch back to the thing and see what questions people are asking in the comments. So what army comes after vampires? We don't know yet. I mean, we know, you don't know yet, and we will let you know once we are ready to reveal that. Do you think it will be harder to incorporate feedback with more projects? I don't think so. The way that we work is pretty flexible and pretty fast. I think right now we are very the distance between when something is developed and when something is released is relatively close. Many times it's far too close than it should be. Like, we are working in December on things that are released in January. Ugh, that's rough. And so we want to start creating a nice little like backlog for us, ideally a 3 to 6 months backlog, so that we don't have to be panicking every month about what's coming out next month. That does mean that with such a backlog, you might be making something in January that then gets released in July, and then in July you get some feedback that makes you realize, oh crap, like we made this wrong. And so the thing that we're going to run into essentially is that there are going to be some situations where we have to fix something way after we produced it. And so yes, I guess in that sense, it's not that it's going to be harder to incorporate feedback. It's just going to be a different flow of how feedback is incorporated. Since OPR is planning to expand quickly, are there any safeguards in check other than goodwill to keep OPR following the OPR philosophy should you ever step down? Okay. I feel like you're asking the question in a very rational way, so let's answer this in a very rational way. Rationally speaking, there is no possibility of creating a safeguard, right? So if I were to disappear tomorrow, somebody could come in and let's imagine I were to disappear tomorrow and somebody else would take over the company. I mean, they could do whatever they want, right? Like, how do you create an actual safeguard that keeps a company in check besides the law, right? Like, I don't think there is I don't think that's possible. So it's like, yeah, I don't think there is anything like, if I just want to be very, very, very realistic, yeah, besides the fact that within OPR we have a certain company culture and certain ideals of where the company should go and what we should or shouldn't do, and so on and so forth. Besides that, there is nothing else safeguarding the OPR philosophy, right? It could totally be that somebody one day comes in and takes over the company and just does something completely different, right? That's just a 360. Of course, I hope that never happens, but God, I would be lying if I said I promise you that would never happen. How would I know? How would I know if I die? How would I know what's going to happen to the company? So yes, we have. I'm gonna say, like, we have internal, let's say, safeguards, which is basically like our pillars and like our philosophy and what we believe in. And truly, in many ways, you could say that our community is our safeguard, right? So if we do something wrong, our community lets us know, and then things don't go as well for us, right? But I suppose that's how it works for every company. I don't know. Nice question though. I had never really thought about this way. Questions. What about tournament support for TOs, tournament organizers? Is there planned something like a trophy still? Oh, okay. So this is slightly complicated. So, all right, we have been talking about this for a while. So we have something that we've been working on for a long time in very small bits, which was originally called the OPR Vanguards program, but now it's been renamed to the OPR Rangers program. And as part of the Rangers program, we are going to provide content and material and even tools within Army Forge to help people organize OPR events. And within that, yes, you can expect, different things and guidelines and prizes and stuff like that. Now, the trophy STLs is a bit complicated because it's like, okay, just because of how our license work, if we sell you the STL, we're not selling you the STL, right? We are selling you the license to privately print and whatever play with the STL. So if you can just buy the STL, if you buy the STL, you cannot print it and give it out. So that's out. We cannot sell you a trophy. if we give out the trophy for free, which we could do, so then you can totally print it and give it out. I feel like it doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Like, if everybody can just go on our website and just download and print their own trophies, doesn't that sort of defeat the purpose? I'm not sure. Something we had considered at some point was like to basically create a little kit that you can buy on Only Games, where like you basically buy a little tournament kit and it's sold essentially at cost, and it comes with like, you know, prizes and stuff like that for you to give out. But I'm not sure how much people would actually buy and use that. So it's a weird situation that I don't truly have a perfect answer to. Yeah. Are we going to have material in another language? Very interesting. This is something we have considered. We have actually been in contact with some translation companies. Maybe. The big complexity is just how OPR works in terms of like the amount of content that we do and how it's released and where it's released and how often it gets updated. That's a big problem, right? And also like we're going for the one page philosophy, which in some other languages, if you take the rule books, like the core book, for instance, and you just translate another language, it simply cannot stay on one page. It will just break into 2 pages, which maybe it's not the end of the world, but it is a thing. So anyway, so it's something that we would like to do, at least for a couple of the major languages, but I'm not exactly sure how that would work. I think maybe the safest bet would be that we translate the safest bet would be that we translate the core rules. It's tough because it's like, okay, if we translate the core rules, people are going to say, well, why don't you translate the beginner's guide? So we say, okay, let's translate the beginner's guide. Then people say, well, why isn't the advanced rulebook translated? So we're like, oh, damn, okay, so like, let's go and translate the advanced rulebook. And then they're like, well, why aren't the expansions translated? So, all right, now that project grew. And then they're like, why isn't Army Forge translated? And all of a sudden, it's like, it's an enormous project. I don't know if people are aware of the incredible amount of content that OPR is currently, it's not just releasing all the time, but that's even just currently available. And with the whole 2024 plans I've been showing you, like way more content is coming. So translating all the content, especially if we want it to be available in different languages on release, adds a huge other step into our pipeline. So I like the idea, but I'm not exactly sure how we can actually make it work. And I'm also not sure, I hate to say this, but I'm also not sure how truly of a priority it is to us. Like the vast majority of our players are coming either from English-speaking countries or from countries where the level of English is very high. So if most people so far have been able to play with the English versions, that means we're doing something right. And we have this whole section on Discord for fan translations, which has been working for the people that don't speak English. It's tough. Question: will you produce terrain files for FDM printers with less fiddly details? No, we have decided not to make FDM designed terrain. Machine Cult Love: will we see a drawing on how they look? Yes, you will see a drawing of one of our ideas of how they could look. Will there be a PDF point calculator again? No way. The point calculation system has gotten so complex, and the Army Forge Studio is so extremely powerful that there is no reason for us to do the PDF anymore. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. Will Commander finally have aircraft models? There are currently no plans to release 10mm models that are not 32mm models. So if we do aircrafts, they're going to be first in the 32mm versions and then also come out for 10mm. One exception is that we are thinking about making enormous models for 10mm. So something that is so big you would never be able to play it on a 32mm scale. A model that on 32mm would be your entire table. Well, that's the type of thing we can do in 10mm that we would not have in 32mm. Will there be a campaign book to go alongside the Titanforge Archvillain crossover? There are no plans for that yet. Why is the Orc Marauders Titan only transport 6? Not sure. I would have to look into it. It's only 6. Give me a second. Let me double check something here. It does feel a bit odd. Orc Marauders. Oh yeah, it's only 6. Strange. Let me take a note here and look into this further. Maybe it would make sense that it would be at least 11, if not more, right? I don't know. Let me write down. All right. Are you looking for people so they could make translations? As I said before, if we were going through translations, we would go through a company or through some companies. Are we going to have material in another language? Okay, same question. If I make videos about minis, will DMCA me on YouTube? No, I don't see why we would. There's lots of people that make videos with our minis on YouTube, and there's no reason we would have a problem with that. The only problem, I suppose, would be the only problem we would ever have is if somebody's sharing paid material for free, right? It's piracy, basically. That's the only thing that is a problem. Blah 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 blah. Will small scale games, rules, and armies be free just like for the other games? Yes, of course. So all of our games, all the core rules and the beginner's book and the couple of the expansions and the armies, they're always going to be free. Do not anything you need to play a satisfying version of the game is always going to be fully available for free, and then any additional content will be that will then be paid, right? So that's the big separation for me. It's like I don't want to release a game where you need to pay for something to have a satisfying experience. If you can have a satisfying experience, that's going to be free. Anything that goes beyond that, that's paid. What are your plans to become physicals? Producing PVC models, box, including game accessories. So, we're still very much at the beginning of all this stuff. I mean, one of the things about physical is we are actually currently fully physically available through only games. But one of the big problems is that not many people know only games. And unfortunately, because there have been some issues in the past, there are people that don't trust only games. And so one of the first thing we're probably going to do is we're going to look into expanding where you can get our physical minis. So maybe find a way to make it so that you can get them directly on our website, or maybe make it so that you can get them on Etsy, stuff like that, where it's like print on demand, like we're already currently doing, but available through different platforms. But then of course it would be really cool to do like a big box 2-player starter set that is available in physical, that's maybe released via a Kickstarter campaign or a GameFound campaign or something like that. And then maybe that would even make its way into a retail store. Is there a problem if I sell armies with everything translate? Yes. If you're going to sell, you cannot sell our content. Even if you translate it, you cannot just sell a translated version of our content. As for possible this is interesting. As for possible safeguards, you could do what D&D did in the 90s and release some permanent free to use rules and army lists. I mean, isn't that what we're already doing? Isn't that what we've been doing for the last 10 years? We've always been releasing permanent free to use rules and army lists. So I guess what you could do, and actually somebody already did, is like they grabbed all the stuff from our website and they did like an archive. I guess you could do that and do like an archive. Maybe that would be kind of like a safeguard. Okay. Do you plan to create a space with more standardized rules for competitive play, such as missions and map setup? Would be cool. It's something that we've been considering with the Rangers program. Like maybe have, I don't know, a yearly competitive or whatever tournament pack where it's like, hey, here is a set of, I don't know, 6 missions with a set amount of objectives and set deployment zones and set places to put terrain and stuff like that. And we do release this like, I don't know, once a year, and then people use it for their tournaments. That would be very cool. One of the problems that I have with tournament play for OPR is just like OPR is inherently not designed to be a competitive game. And so I do fear that if we start releasing competitively, like stuff to help people play competitively, then they might do that and realize, wait, this game is actually not made for competitive play, and then they will start complaining because they're going to be like, you misled us, right? I don't want to mislead someone into saying like, hey, here's the OPR tournament pack. OPR is a perfect balanced game and made for tournaments and everything like that. And then you actually start trying to play a tournament and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, this is not true. This is a lie. So that's something that I'm a bit wary about. So I don't know. I don't understand. Somebody said by free to use, I mean even I'm a commercial sense as well. I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe you mean like a commercial license. We do not provide commercial licenses, so I don't know. Sorry, I don't fully understand the question. What scale are OPR models? 32 mil, essentially. I guess they're like true 32 mil. Like they're actually 32 mil to the eyes. You know, with the scale, it's always a little bit weird. But they are, I guess they are 32 millimeter heroic. Maybe that's what you could call them. Do you think you'll be able to incorporate feedback as easily with more games? Yeah, I don't see a problem. Would it be okay to release free RPG fan content with pictures of OPR models and in the setting? I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to give a definitive answer here because I don't know the actual legal implications of that. So we would have to go and see that with like our business team and lawyers and all that stuff to kind of understand where does the license thing make sense. The big problem with this type of stuff is like we don't want people to make content that accidentally looks like it's official content when it's not. And since right now we are such a small company and not that well known, like in the general scale of tabletop gaming, I think it's still very, very easy for someone to confuse what is or isn't official. And so yeah, that's where this becomes ambiguous. Tournament event support in Army Forge when it's ready, as always. Okay, people are asking about OGL license. Guys, I just being very honest here, I don't know exactly about these things. These are all legal things. I'm not the legal person here. We would have to discuss all this type of stuff with the legal team. That being said, we actually do provide a sort of like small legal / whatever framework within Army Forge Studio. So when you do create stuff in Army Forge Studio, you are agreeing to our terms. And so I guess if whatever you do fits within those terms, it kind of maybe makes sense. Again, this is not legal advice. This is not an official statement. Do not misunderstand. Question: could you add an event site on your website where TOs could post their events like gaming this? So yeah, that's actually something I was mentioning before. We are planning to add, with the whole OPR Rangers program, we are planning to add a section maybe or something, ideally in Army Forge or maybe in our website. I suppose through Army Forge. Yeah, we are planning to do something like that. So basically, like have a place where people can put like their events and stuff like that. Ideally, we would make it cool with like, like a map or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm overselling, but yes, we are planning to do some sort of thing to have some sort of space where people can register events and people can apply for them and all that stuff. Any plans for more clothing designs? I would love to. Honestly, it's just not our priority, but it's something I would love to. Yes. Is there a plan to incorporate cloud saving for Army Forge? I'm not sure. Ask Adam. He knows better than me. Maybe, maybe no. When we will see the results of the last community survey? When it's ready, baby. As always, when it's ready. All right. I think this was the last question. We are 3 hours into the stream. I see there's still around 140 people left. Amazing. Thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this preview. Well, this review of 2023 and this preview of 2024. Yeah, I'm very, very excited. I think we are. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to release everything we're planning and release it in schedule and the schedule that we're planning. Of course, if it doesn't work, things are just going to get a little bit delayed, but I don't think that should be a problem. We have ambitious plans. We are an ambitious company. And yeah, I hope you stick around and you enjoy what we do. I know that as we have grown, it is also I see some people get a little discouraged sometimes, where it's like, we are now such a big company that no matter what we do, no matter what we post, no matter what we release, no matter what we do, there is always going to be someone that complains. It just is what it is. We see this on YouTube, we see this in the comment sections, we see whatever. But don't be discouraged by that. That's a very, very small minority of people. Keep spreading the positivity. Keep creating content, keep sharing, keep be nice to each other, and yeah, don't worry about it. Like I sometimes see some people talk about OPR and they're like, oh my god, it's OPR, like there's people complaining about this, does this mean like OPR is doomed or whatever, or people hate this new line of models. OPR just keeps growing, like that's just the reality of it. So yeah, don't be discouraged by those things. Keep the positivity up. Have fun, play the games, happy new year's, all the good stuff. And yeah, I will see you on the next stream. I think the next stream is probably going to be, I think either the 25th of January or the 1st of February. I'm going to set it now, let's say for the 25th of January, but if necessary, we will shift it to the 1st of February. But yeah, whatever, it is what it is. Okay. Thank you. Happy New Year's. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye, everyone.